Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome to Race Day here at the Red Bull Ring for the 8th Grand Prix of 2026, the 2026 Austrian Grand Prix. A very hot Red Bull Ring it is today. It's been very hot all across Western and Central Europe for the last few days. And yesterday, it was, 33 degrees Celsius for the air temperature, track temperature over 50. And it is pretty much the same, if not even a tad hotter today. So we are in for a very interesting and I think close, competitive, and hopefully exciting Austrian Grand Prix. There are many elements that are going to make this race exciting. Obviously, it's a lot easier to overtake here than it is or was at the last couple tracks we've been to in Monaco and Catalonia. We have, 3 zones really where you can overtake: turn 1, turn 3, and turn 4, and even going into turn 6. So overtaking definitely is something we're going to see plenty of today, I'm sure, in the midfield and hopefully with the front running teams as well. But because of the heat, as we saw in Spain, race strategy is going to be very important today. Pirelli, the tyre supplier, of course, are expecting at least a 2-stop race for the Grand Prix today. Depending on the timing of maybe a virtual safety car or a safety car, we could even see a few teams go for a 3-stop strategy. So, in terms of what the teams decide to do with when they pit and also how the teams look after their tyres, it's going to be a very important Grand Prix indeed. So even though we obviously had qualifying yesterday, qualifying very much is only half the battle, as opposed to somewhere like Monaco or Barcelona where, if you get pole, you've done most of the time, most of the job of getting, the result that you really are aiming for. But here, again, given the heat, given how strategy is going to play out, it is going to be a tough race, no doubt about it. Tough on the engines, tough on the tyres, and we'll see just who comes out on top in the end. Of course, qualifying yesterday was very controversial, with George Russell taking pole position under yellow flags. It turned out, though, that Russell kept his pole position lap because, technically speaking, via the leniency, essentially, of the stewards, Russell was able to keep his pole position. Going into that penultimate corner after Max Verstappen had his accident, it was a single waved yellow for Russell. I still don't know why it was only a single waved. It should have been a double waved yellow, but it was a single waved yellow flag for Russell on the entry to that corner. And he did lift by, I think, just under 100 meters before the corner. And the stewards were satisfied enough that that was a significant enough lift. I will get on to why I disagree with that soon enough, but the stewards were satisfied and it was only a single waved yellow flag, and that is what allowed George Russell, despite lifting slightly, to get pole position, and he will start this Grand Prix from pole. George Russell, despite being very quick here, he has never started from pole at this Grand Prix before. He obviously won here 2 years ago, but normally he starts outside of even the front row or front 2 rows of the grid. He's never really been up near the front, mainly because the Mercedes car, not until really this year, has really been that good at this circuit, since Russell joined the Mercedes team in 2022. So Russell, obviously took 18 points out of Antonelli's championship lead with Antonelli's DNF for the last Grand Prix. If he wins today, the gap will be down to, I think, 43 points if Antonelli finishes second. If it finishes the way the grid is, then the gap will go down to 37 points. And at that point, then you have to say Russell is absolutely back in the championship fight. But as we've seen here before, even if you've got pole position, it doesn't necessarily matter in terms of, going and getting the win. I remember Max Verstappen here a few years ago in 2019. Started second, had a terrible start. He was, I think, 8th or 9th at the end of the first lap. He was the winner at the end of the 71 laps. So you don't need to be on pole or even really on the front row here. You just need to have the pace to win. If you've got the pace to win, because it's a lot easier to overtake here, you should be able to make your way through the pack if you are quicker than cars ahead. So as long as you've got the pace to win, you will win. So if Mercedes don't quite have the pace today for whatever reason, maybe it's too hot. We saw that in Spain that they actually had issues with the heat in terms of it affecting their battery in the last Grand Prix. That very well could be a factor here because this track is a lot more strenuous on the power unit, so that is something to look out for. But also, they were not really managing their tyres too well in the last Grand Prix. So, if Mercedes are struggling, then, and maybe Max even in the Red Bull in 5th has got the pace, there's no reason why he can't come through and win from the 3rd row of the grid. So, yeah, I think we are in for a good race today, no doubt about it. I'm very much looking forward to it, been looking forward to it for a few weeks. Qualifying was close and exciting, and I think we'll get a close, exciting race as well. And hopefully you guys will be joining us in enjoying this Austrian Grand Prix today. And hello to all of you, of course. Hope you're all doing well on this Sunday, the last Sunday of June. And no matter what time zone you're in, what part of the world you're from, hope you're all doing as well as possible given whatever circumstances you are going through. And yeah, hope you can join us today in enjoying and watching along the Austrian Grand Prix of 2026. As usual, if you're unfamiliar with what we do on these race watch-alongs, I know the last race watch-along we did was about a month ago in Canada. In the build-up to the race, we will go through the data from yesterday to look at why qualifying finished the way it did, go through the sector time data to look where certain teams are quicker than others and really what is making the difference this weekend. And then I will give my own, of course, predictions as to who I think will be where in the top 10 at the end of the 71 laps. We'll also do a discussion about tyres, because of course that is a very important subject for today, given the weather conditions. And obviously we'll go through the starting grid as well before the race. So we'll give you all the key information you need ahead of lights out. And then when we get to the race, obviously we'll be taking you through the action. And I will thankfully be joined today by my co-commentator as usual, Niblo. He will be joining us in about half an hour or so before the race begins, so in about an hour and 20 minutes from now. And yeah, he will be joining us for the race today. So we will get his thoughts ahead of the race as well. But yeah, that's the plan for the build up to the race. Again, that's for just mentioning that for people who haven't been here for a race watch along on this channel before. But as usual, before I go any further, make sure to vote in the poll running in the chat. I've set up where I've asked you guys, who do you think is going to win the Austrian Grand Prix today? Will it be pole position man George Russell? Or will it be his teammate Kimi Antonelli, the championship leader? Or will it be one of the Ferrari drivers to take Ferrari's second consecutive win in 2026? Will it be Charles Leclerc or Lewis Hamilton taking his second win in a row in 2026? Let me know in that poll, and I will finish up the poll results a few minutes before the race starts to see who you guys have voted for. So yeah, make sure to cast your vote, and then we'll see what the results are right before lights out in Austria. But let's now get into the results of qualifying and focus on the top 10. George Russell, pole position, a 106.1. A stunningly quick lap, I must say. I thought pole position would be a 106.4, which is about the lap time that Hamilton and Antonelli did. Leclerc actually went quicker than that as well, did a 106.3. So the pace in qualifying was really hot. It was a lot quicker than I expected. And if Russell didn't have to lift, he would have actually gone into the 1 minute 5s. So yeah, the pace was very hot in qualifying. And let's just get out of the way the George Russell situation. Of course, Niblo, when he comes on later, he will, have his say, and we'll chat about that as well. But in regards to Russell, obviously at the top of the stream, I explained why he was allowed to keep that pole, because the stewards were satisfied enough that he lifted significantly enough in what was a single waved yellow flag zone. There's two problems with this incident. One, it should have been double waved yellows. It should not have been a single waved yellow. That's a mistake on the part of the FIA and the marshals to an extent as well. But secondly, the interpretation of how significant of a lift do you need to make in a single waved yellow flag zone is just not right to me, because it's a grey area and it can be easily abused, and it just doesn't feel right. And this really still goes back to, Max Verstappen being in the wall, and, that should have been a clear double waved yellow situation. But it just doesn't feel right to me that you can lift off only by a couple tenths and then just get straight back on it when there's someone who's in the wall, off the track. That just doesn't feel right to me at all. And I don't think a lift of only a tenth and a half or 2 tenths in terms of lost time, I don't think that is significant enough, even for a single waved yellow flag zone. But again, it's up to the stewards to determine whether the lift that the driver has made is significant enough. And that right there is the problem, is it's open to interpretation, and it depends purely on the opinion of whoever the stewards are at that particular point. And I just don't agree with that. Even in a single waved yellow flag zone, you should be lifting to the point where you cannot go any quicker, with your lap. A 2/10 of a second lift, that is not enough for me, even in a single waved yellow flag zone. So there needs to be better clarification and a more strict clarification that you must lift by a bit more than just 2 tenths on your fast lap if there's a single waved yellow flag. There needs to be a stricter definition, I guess you could call it, because this will now be abused. I mean, that is what we saw with Russell. And, at the end of the day, it's not Russell's fault, because the stewards, it's up to them to determine whether his lift or not was appropriate or, again, significant enough. I don't think it was. They think it was. That's really what it comes down to. Russell himself didn't do anything wrong technically speaking, in terms of the regulations, maybe you could argue it's a bit unsportsmanlike, but Formula One is not very sportsmanlike, to be honest, in terms of the way the drivers act. So, yeah. But I just think they've got to clamp down on this going forward, because it is something that can be abused. Because going still, maybe not going at absolute full pelt, but still going at a very high speed under even a single waved yellow flag is kind of related to why we eventually introduced the virtual safety car to Formula One. Because what led to the Jules Bianchi crash was drivers, even under double waved yellows, drivers would not ignore double waved yellows or single waved yellows, but they would get away with it a lot more back then and wouldn't really lift off and properly obey those yellows. And sadly for Bianchi, we know how that finished up. With because that situation should have been a virtual safety car, but obviously virtual safety car didn't exist at the time. So yeah, there needs to be a more strict definition of what you are allowed to do under a single waved yellow flag. And I don't think a lift of only 0.2 of a second is enough of a slowing down from a driver, in my view. You may disagree, and if you do, that's fine. If you do disagree, let me know why you disagree in the chat. But yeah, technically speaking, Russell, he didn't do anything wrong. One thing I would like to mention quickly, because I don't want to ramble on too long about this, because obviously we got a lot more to discuss before the race. There was another situation similar to this a very long time ago, only a year actually after I was born, at the 99 Monaco Grand Prix, where Mika Hakkinen took pole position for that race. And it was a very controversial pole because there was a yellow flag, and Hakkinen acknowledged the yellow flag, but he acknowledged it in a way that was very unique to him, where in between that straight, in between the, what was it? The chicane and to back, he lifted his hand, kind of waving to say, I acknowledge there's a yellow flag, but he didn't actually, I don't think, lift it off at all, and ended up taking pole. And again, at the time, it was very controversial. Thankfully, he ended up not winning that race in the end, because of that. Well, not because of that, but, he didn't end up winning that Grand Prix anyway. But, in a similar way to that, even though Hakkinen acknowledged the yellow flag, and again, it was a very unique way Hakkinen would acknowledge yellow flags. It was actually quite a funny thing about him, where he would just put his hand up, but just keep his foot down. Back then, the stewards were satisfied with that, and again, that was a big controversial moment. And I don't know if we had a regulation change when it came to obeying yellow flags after that, but if there was, then I think there should be going forward after this, because I just don't think, I think there needs to be a bigger, you need to lift off a lot more, I think, for a single waved yellow. I really do think you have to. That's just my view on the incident. Again, if you agree, disagree, let me know in the chat. But that's just my view on the incident and what should happen going forward. But mainly, it is a failure by the FIA, because if you disregard whether Russell lifted enough or not, it should have been a double waved yellow, which if it was, Russell would have had to give up on the lap just like Antonelli did because he believed it was a double waved yellow, and I think was actually possibly shown double waved yellows briefly when he was going round that incident before Russell. So yeah, just a wrong display of the flags, let's say, by the system, and that's what led to the controversy in the end. In regards to George Russell getting pole position, but in terms of, if we forget the controversy, if we look at if we look at it in terms of pure performance, Mercedes were the fastest team in qualifying yesterday. There is no doubt about that. In regards to where would Kimi Antonelli have been, would he have been ahead of Russell? I'm not sure, but I think Antonelli definitely would have been on the front row if it was not for him lifting because he thought it was initially he did have a double waved yellow flag come up on his dashboard. So Mercedes, as we saw through practice, and as I predicted, really, going into qualifying, had a clear advantage, and that's why they're on pole position with George Russell. But really, it should be a front row lockout because, yeah, they do have the fastest car, no doubt about it. Max Verstappen, of course, had his accident. If he didn't have his accident, I think Max probably would have outqualified the two Ferrari cars. Not by a lot, probably by a tenth at most, but if Max had not crashed, I think the grid would have been Russell on pole, and then Antonelli second, Max in third, and then Leclerc and Hamilton fourth and fifth. That's how I think the top five would have been if Max had not had his accident. But he did, and that's why it is the way it is. So Ferrari are second and third on the grid, which is, again, a bit of a better position than they actually deserve. Lewis Hamilton actually said after qualifying, when he was asked about Ferrari's chances of winning today, that he doesn't think they have that good of a chance because Mercedes have been consistently a bit quicker than them this weekend. Even though in qualifying, yeah, it was a bit closer than it was in practice, Mercedes have had a clear 2 to 3 tenths of a second advantage over Ferrari. And I think that will be maintained in the race as well. So Ferrari benefiting quite a bit actually from Max's crash because it prevented Max and Antonelli from going ahead of the Ferraris, which is probably what would have happened if it was a normal end to qualifying. But albeit, despite Max's accident, Ferrari are second and third on the grid. What can they do from there? We know they get great starts. If they can get a great start today, maybe they can really make a good fight of it in the race. But personally, I don't think they've got the pace to win today. I think really just getting on the podium, I think, would be a good result for them. I just don't think they've got quite enough pace to win this Grand Prix. But it is going to be very interesting to see how the Ferraris fare through the early laps if they do get a good start. But you've got Antonelli in fourth. You would expect him to make his way past the two Ferraris, really, given that the Mercedes is quicker in a straight line and is the quicker car this weekend. And then you've got Max in fifth. Even though Max had his accident, I do think he will be right in that fight for the podium. And I think him taking on and fighting the two Ferraris is a battle we are going to see today, without doubt. And then we've got the two McLarens, 6th and 7th. McLaren just don't have the pace at the minute to be fighting for race wins. 4 tenths off in the end, and again, that's including, that's not including, rather, that Russell lifted by 1.5 or so. So pretty much half a second off the pace of Mercedes. And as we saw in Spain, and as I predicted, really, even though they looked good in practice, they are always inevitably going to drop off the pace when it comes to qualifying itself. McLaren are just missing a few tenths of a second at the minute, really, to be fighting for the win. And to be honest, I don't think they're really gonna make a step forward in this area, or not in this area, but in general, I don't think they're gonna make a step forward pace wise until maybe just before the summer break, when we get to probably the next track, which will probably suit their car quite a bit more, which I think will be the Hungaroring in Hungary. Obviously, they will need another upgrade between now and then if they really want to give themselves a good chance of winning that. But yeah, the next couple races after this at Silverstone and Spa, I really don't think they're going to do much of anything. They just don't have the car really to be fighting properly in the top 2-3 positions at the moment. So 6th and 7th is where the McLaren team are at. Isaac Hadjar in 8th. Could Hadjar have done better? I think given how close it was in qualifying, I don't think he could have. Maybe in terms of lap time, he could have been closer to Piastri in 7th, but position-wise, I don't think he could have done any better. I think 8th is the best he could have done in that Red Bull. So, yeah, I don't think I have any problem with where Hadjar's at. I think he'll be right with, though, the two McLarens during the race. And then completing the top 10, the two Racing Bulls of Lawson and Lindblad. What a weekend Racing Bulls are having. Can they score points with both cars today? It's likely, but not guaranteed. But, yeah, they're looking very good, as they have been for most of this season. And then outside of the top 10, you've got Gasly in 11th. I think he'll have a good race today. A bit unfortunate in qualifying. He was very close to making it in to Q3. Nearly knocked Max Verstappen out in Q2. He was only 0.04 of a second away from knocking Max out. And then you've got Bortoletto 12th. Decent qualifying from him, out qualifying Hulkenberg. 13th is Behrman, having a decent weekend. 14th Hulkenberg. 15th Ocon. 16th Colapinto. Colapinto, not a good qualifying there. He should be a bit higher up than that. And then 17th and 18th, the two Williams. Williams really poor this weekend. 19th and 20th is the two Cadillacs of Perez and Bottas. And then Aston Martin, not only on the back row, Aston Martin were 1 second slower than Cadillac in qualifying. A second. What do you say at this point? It's just, it still astounds me just how bad this Aston Martin car is. It really does. I mean, yeah, if you look at this track, it's a pretty simple track. There's only, 10 real corners, and they are 4 seconds off, or 3 odd seconds off pole, and a second behind Cadillac. Not really doing anything to dispel the allegations of having built the worst car of all time, quite frankly, given, again, the money and the resources and the talent supposedly at play within that team. But, yeah, this is your top 10 starting order for the Austrian Grand Prix. Let's now get into the sector time data, just to understand why, mainly Mercedes, have been the fastest team this weekend. So Sector 1 is all about power. Mercedes, half a tenth quicker than Ferrari. Ferrari have brought an upgraded power unit this weekend. I think it is working to a degree. It is helping them, but not by as much as it needs to put them on par with Mercedes. I think it's giving them probably an extra 1/10 of a second per lap, which maybe at certain tracks will help them, but a 1/10 of a second per lap is not going to make a massive difference, let's be honest, to where Ferrari are at. I mean, yeah, they won the last Grand Prix, but, you know, they were quicker than Mercedes in the last Grand Prix, but it wasn't by a lot. It was, I mean, mainly they were quicker through just doing a better race strategy. If they had done the same race strategy as Mercedes, it would have been a much closer fight as to whether they would have won that race. So an extra 1/10 of a second, it helps, but it doesn't significantly push them forward. It just doesn't. And then you got Red Bull, 7/100ths of a second off. That's about as good as Red Bull should be, I'd say, in the first sector. McLaren, though, 1/10.5 off in the first sector. That is just not good enough, given that they have a Mercedes power unit as well. They should be really matching the pace of Ferrari. So, yeah, I think they're missing about 1/10 of a second of performance just here. And if they were 1/10 of a second quicker in Sector 1 alone, Lando Norris could have ended up being third on the grid. That's how close it was in qualifying, and that is just how, even just half a tenth or so better performance in certain parts of the lap could have made a massive difference to McLaren's day. Racing Bulls, pretty good pace from them in the first sector, and then a slight drop off to Alpine and Haas. Audi, Williams, and then Cadillac, pretty much on the same pace as Williams. Remember, Cadillac have not got the upgraded Ferrari power unit, neither of Haas. So, if they did, and yeah, let's say it's given them let's say in this part of the lap, an extra half a tenth, and then another half a tenth probably in the middle sector, then you can work out the advantage that they probably would get from that. So, yeah, Cadillac certainly doing a good job, and also Cadillac have brought a lot of upgrades this weekend. I think 10 new parts have Cadillac. So, yeah, Cadillac moving forward, and does feel like they have, at least to Williams, they have closed the gap. And then, of course, Aston Martin at the back, as usual. Middle sector is still mainly about power. You've got turn 4, which is a slow speed corner, and then turn 6, which is I'd say a high speed corner, just about. And Red Bull were just about the quickest through the middle sector in qualifying. That middle sector time from Verstappen, by the way, that was the middle sector time he did right before his accident. So it just shows you he was on a really good lap before his accident. If he had not had that accident, I think, yeah, he would have ended up at least third, maybe even second on the grid. So, yeah, a shame that he had that accident. Red Bull are saying that it was because of a failure from the rear wing. Apparently, the rear wing malfunctioned in terms of when the, for example, when they're flat out, the rear wing and the front wing, they flex to minimize drag. Obviously, the gap in the rear wing opens like it did, last year when you have DRS. When they close it, or when it was supposed to close for Max, I don't think it fully closed his rear wing. So, yeah, not good there for Red Bull. Mercedes, though, pretty quick through the middle sector still. But generally, I mean, only a quarter of a tenth separating the front 4 teams in just the middle sector. That is how close it is in Formula 1 right now. So nothing really separating the front 4 teams. A big drop-off then to Racing Bulls and Alpine, 3 to 4 tenths off the pace. And then you got Audi, Haas, and then Williams. Look how far off they are, even just compared to Haas. Pretty much 4 tenths off in just the middle sector alone, and 9 tenths of a second they are losing pretty much in just the middle sector. I mean, Racing Bulls for the entire lap were only about 8 tenths off pole position, so it just shows you how far off the pace Williams are. They are so bad, so slow. And again, as I said yesterday on stream, if it wasn't for Aston Martin being so bad, they would be getting a lot of criticism, and rightly so, because this Williams car is so bad. Cadillac, only a couple tenths off Williams through the middle sector. Good pace from them. And then a big drop-off, obviously, to Aston Martin. And then the final sector is really about high-speed corner performance. And Mercedes, we know the high-speed corners have got a very good car. And they were pretty much a tenth and a half quicker than the next best car, being the Red Bull of Isaac Hadjar. Max, though, didn't get the chance to do an improved final sector time because of his crash. If he had stayed on the track, I reckon Max probably would have done only a slightly quicker final sector time than Hadjar. So Mercedes still were the fastest team in the final sector. No doubt about it. Red Bull, though, still good pace. McLaren, bit better from them in the final part of the lap. Ferrari, though, 2 tenths off in just the final sector. I know in high-speed corners, their car is not quite as good as it is in the slow and medium-speed corners, but 2 tenths off in 20 seconds worth of time is too much. They should be at least a tenth closer than this. So, yeah, giving away a bit too much there, I think, to Mercedes. But overall, for the lap, Mercedes are what? About a quarter of a second, by the looks of it. Quicker than Ferrari. So, yeah, that's about right for what we expected going into qualifying. So, it's not really a surprise, the gap between Mercedes and Ferrari. Bit of a drop-off then to Racing Bulls. Racing Bulls, though, comfortably the quickest midfield team of the final sector by a tenth and a half over Alpine and Audi. Slight drop-off then to Haas. Williams, again, so far off the pace. 9 tenths off Mercedes in just the final sector. And a quarter of a second behind Haas even. Cadillac only about 2.5 tenths or so behind Williams. And then Aston Martin still by far the slowest team. But if we go back to the qualifying order quickly, in terms of the pecking order, Mercedes clearly have the best car, no doubt about it. Even if Max had done the best final sector he could have done, he still would have been, I think, a tenth off. A tenth off Antonelli. So when you add up all the best sector times that each team did, Mercedes, say, compared to Red Bull, you're looking at almost a 0.2 of a second gap. And then from Mercedes to Ferrari, about 2.5 tenths. And then from Mercedes to McLaren, you're looking at about 3 tenths probably. So Mercedes, it's not a dominant gap between them and the rest, but it is comfortable enough for them to clearly be called the fastest team around this track. And unless they have, issues managing the tyres or issues with the heat when it comes to the battery of their power unit, which they were suffering to a degree in Spain a couple weeks ago. Unless those issues come back again today, I just don't see how they don't win today's race. Because, again, they've got the clear, say, 0.2 of a second advantage over the rest of the front-running teams. So, yeah, Mercedes are the quickest team. Second quickest, I think it was Red Bull. I think Red Bull did have a quicker car in qualifying than Ferrari did. Whether that will translate to the race, we'll see. But I think Red Bull were just slightly by half a tenth or so quicker than Ferrari. Ferrari then third, McLaren clearly fourth. And then for the midfield, Racing Bulls comfortably the best midfield team ahead of Alpine. And then seventh, probably Audi. Eighth, Haas. And then clearly the 3 slowest teams, Williams, Cadillac, and Aston Martin at the very back. So, yeah, pretty clear pecking order from qualifying. And I think, to be honest, in the race today, I think that's probably clearly going to be the pecking order for the race as well. And given that pecking order, let's get into my predictions for this Austrian Grand Prix. And here they are. George Russell, I think, will win the Austrian Grand Prix for the second time in his career by a few seconds from teammate Kimi Antonelli. The gap of 8 seconds, which I predicted, that'll be mainly because Antonelli will be spending time obviously having to pass the 2 Ferrari cars and battle with them, which will hurt his tyres a bit. Third, I think, will be Max Verstappen. I believe that Max can get on the podium today. It will be close. It'll be a good battle between him and the 2 Ferrari drivers, but I think Verstappen will finish third. Fourth, I'm going Leclerc. Fifth, Hamilton. Again, it'll be pretty close on time between those 3. Sixth, Norris. Seventh, Piastri. Isaac Hadjar will be close with them in 8th. And then a lap down in 9th will be Liam Lawson. And in 10th, I am going to go Pierre Gasly because I think he didn't quite maximise what he possibly could do in qualifying. So that's my top 10 that I think it will be at the end of the Grand Prix. Let me know in the chat whether you agree or disagree, and let me know in the poll running in the chat. Who do you think will win the race? Will it be Russell, or will it be Antonelli, his teammate, or one of the 2 Ferrari drivers, or even Max Verstappen? Let me know in the live chat, and I'll get to some of your comments soon enough. Let me just quickly get the timer back on the screen, as we have got an hour and 18 minutes to go now until the race begins at the Red Bull Ring. Very hot Red Bull Ring. Even hotter, I think, by maybe a couple degrees than it was yesterday. A bit more cloud cover, I think, there was yesterday than today. Before I get into anything else, though, just want to say quickly, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, as we do quali and race watch-alongs for every Grand Prix. Make sure to subscribe, obviously, for that content coming up later in the season. And make sure as well to smash a like button. Obviously does help the channel in the algorithm, helps show me that you guys enjoy the content, and just in general helps the channel out. So if you could do that, that would be great. And yeah, make sure to keep voting in that poll in the chat. I am, though, just quickly going to have a quick sip of my water, and then we're going to get into some tyre talk. So, yeah, I'll be back in just a second. Alright, so that should be a bit better for now. So yeah, let's get into tyres, which is, yeah, it's going to be an important subject for today. So, yeah, let's just quickly get into, firstly, before we talk about what strategies certain teams could do, let's get into the best race strategies that Pirelli have said are possible for this Grand Prix. Remember, the 3 compounds this weekend are the C5, C4, and C3. Those are the 3 softest tyres that Pirelli have. So that's what's making tyre wear so important this weekend. So they do predict a 2-stop race to be the quickest way of doing this Grand Prix, but there is a 3-stop option for today. So the 2-stop options are to start on the medium compound tyre, pit between laps 17 and 23, then go on to a set of hard tyres, pit again between lap 46 and 52, and then finish the race on another set of hard tyres. Or you could start the race with the mediums, pit between lap 18 and 24, slightly later, and then pit for a set of hard tyres. Pit again for the second time from the hard tyres, and then go on to a set of mediums to finish the race. But for that second stop, it would be probably a couple laps sooner, pitting between lap 44 and 50. So you'd be finishing the race on a softer and faster compound. And then the third 2-stop option is start on the soft tyre, pit between lap 14 and 20, then stop again between lap 39 and 45, and then go on to a set of hard tyres to finish the race, and you'd have a set of mediums for the middle stint. The 3-stop option is start on the soft tyre, pit between lap 12 and 18 to go onto a set of mediums, then pit again between lap 32 and 38, which is about half distance, then go onto a set of hard tyres, pit again for the final time between lap 52 and 58 to finish the race on a set of soft tyres, to just absolutely go for it and push as hard as possible to try and get as many positions as you can. If there is a virtual safety car, at least in the race today, I think that 3-stopper could be a really good strategy today. But one other important thing to mention is that all of the front-running teams have only got one new set of medium tyres, except for Red Bull. Red Bull have got 2 new sets of the medium compound tyre. Will that be a massive advantage today? It could be. Because what it means is, say for Max, if he starts on the soft compound tyre, for example, and maybe gets up a couple positions and then pits around, say, lap 15, then can just do 2 medium tyre stints, to get to the end of the race. I think if he pits around lap 15, he'd probably want to pit again around probably lap 40, maybe just after lap 40, like lap 42, and then go to the end on another set of medium tyres. But if they are to use both sets of mediums, they could also start on a set of mediums, go until lap 20, 25, and then go on to another set of mediums, and then maybe finish the race on a fresher set of hard tyres compared to their rivals. Maybe do a hard tyre stint in the middle, and then finish the race on a set of mediums. It really depends on the delta difference between the medium and the hard tyre today. If the medium, we know the hard tyre is more durable than the medium tyre, but if the medium is a bit quicker, that could be rather a big advantage for Red Bull today. So do watch out for that in terms of what tyre they start on and then what tyres they use, going forward. I think most likely pretty much everyone is going to start on the medium. I think we will probably get 3 or 4 drivers starting on the hard compound tyre, but I think most drivers start on the medium compound. So if I was to guess what Red Bull's strategy is going to be, probably start on the medium and then maybe go a bit longer with the first stint, then go on to a set of hard tyres, and then pit a bit later for the final stop to go onto a set of mediums, and then just push, really hard at the end to try and make up positions. So, that's what I would guess is what they're going to do. But is that what they should do? We'll get into that in a moment. But let's just go through, strategy-wise, what the teams should do in terms of strategy. So for Mercedes, obviously last Grand Prix they got out-duped on the strategy. Ferrari went for a 3-stop, they went for a 2-stop. 3-stop ended up being the way to go because of the massive tyre wear plus the delta time difference from fresh tyres to tyres that had already done 15 laps or so, or basically already done a stint. So we're not going to see that today as much because this track, even though it's hot, this track does not wear out tyres as much as Barcelona. So I don't think we're going to see a 3-stop race, at least from the front-running teams in this race today. For George Russell, what he needs to do is pretty simple. Stay in the lead, obviously, on the first lap. And then if Mercedes do have a 0.2 of a second advantage over, say, Ferrari, then Russell needs to get on with it and push in the early few laps to build a big enough gap so that he can be safe from the undercut. And then all he has to do simply for the rest of the race is just react to whatever Ferrari or even Max does in the Red Bull, whoever the main rival is outside of, Russell's teammate Antonelli. So if Russell holds the lead on the first lap, and let's say Leclerc is still second, I think probably by lap 15 they should have a good enough gap by then. If they do pull away by 0.2 a lap, then by lap 15 they should have a good enough gap to where they can just react a lap later to whatever Ferrari do or Red Bull do. So for Russell, yeah, he needs to get on with it, push relatively hard in the first, say, 10 laps, and just keep eking out the gap until we get to lap 15. And then by lap 15, he should have, say, a 3 to 4 second lead, which would be just about enough to cover himself from an undercut. Undercut not as powerful here at the Red Bull Ring. In Barcelona, the undercut is worth like 2 seconds, but here it's more like a second, I think, at best. So, yeah, he should, by lap 15, if he pulls away at 0.2 a lap, he should have enough of a gap by then. And then, if Ferrari do pit on lap 15, then, yeah, just simply react to it and, cover them off and just keep maintaining that extra pace they've got, and they should win the race pretty comfortably. With Antonelli, really depends on where he is when he gets to the first round of pit stops. If he's ahead of the two Ferraris and he's in second, then like Russell, he just needs to build enough of a gap so that he can react to whatever the cars behind are doing. But if he's behind at least one of the Ferrari cars, then I think likely what we're going to see is Antonelli run maybe a few laps longer into the race to try and have fresher tyres for the rest of the race so that they can eventually overtake Ferrari that way or Red Bull that way if Red Bull are right in there as well. So, yeah, with Antonelli, his strategy, again, very dependent on where he is at regarding the Ferrari cars. If he can get past them quickly in the first few laps, I'd be surprised if he can, but if he does, then that will really simplify the strategy for Mercedes. So I'd imagine Mercedes are probably going to be telling Kimi, just get on with it, get past the Ferrari cars and build, say, a 2 to 3 second gap over them so we can, comfortably cover everyone off and get the 1-2. I think that's what they'll be aiming for in terms of how they strategize, especially that first stint of the race. For Ferrari, if they are 0.2 a lap slower than Mercedes, then there's not really much they can do against Mercedes in terms of beating them. I don't think you can do a stop less today and pull it off. I just don't see a one-stop strategy working around this track because it's too easy to overtake. And with the Mercedes being so quick in a straight line, towards the end of the race, if Ferrari did do a one-stop race or a stop less than Mercedes would have too much pace, I think, for the Ferrari team to keep them behind. So I think strategy-wise, I think they've got to do the same amount of stops as Mercedes. They can't do a stop more than Mercedes like they did in Spain because a 3-stop without a virtual safety car or a full safety car just won't work. Because you won't be able to gain enough time coming back, through the field and making up, let's say, I don't know, a 25-30 second gap say in the final, I don't know, 20 laps or so, you just won't be able to make that gap up quick enough for it to work. So a 2-stop is what Ferrari should do, and I think very likely will do. If they are 2/10 a lap slower than Mercedes and Antonelli gets ahead of them early on, then I think really their aim needs to be just to cover off everyone else behind, such as, Verstappen and the McLarens. We know McLaren can manage their tyres well, so that might help them to a degree today. But, yeah, if Ferrari are slower than Mercedes, which we are expecting, then, yeah, they just got to cover off the rest behind them if they want to make sure they get on the podium. But if they are, say, on the same pace as Mercedes, like they were pretty much at the last Grand Prix, and let's say it's because Ferrari are managing their tyres better, or Mercedes are suffering in the heat because of the battery getting too hot like it was in the last Grand Prix, which very well could happen today. Let's say that happens again, and Ferrari are able to stick with Mercedes the whole race. What do they do in that scenario? I still don't think doing a stop less would work, but I think at that point, let's say Mercedes and Ferrari have both done 2 stops by, say, lap, or not both done 2 stops, but let's say by lap 30, Ferrari and Mercedes have both done 1 stop each, and Ferrari are right behind Mercedes, doing about the same pace. They're not really pushing to overtake them, but they're lapping about the same pace and keeping right with them. At that point, if I was Ferrari, I'd probably switch to a 3-stop, at least with one of my cars. Because at that point, if they were to pit, if they were right behind them, if they were to pit a bit earlier and go for a 3-stop, I think there's a decent chance they could make it work. But again, you've got to have at least the same pace as your rival if you're going to make a 3-stop work. If you're slower in normal conditions on the, say, same life of tyre, if you're slower, you're not going to make it work because, again, you won't be able to make up the time coming back, towards your rival. So if they are as quick as Mercedes, if not a slight bit quicker, then I think we could see maybe Ferrari trying a 3-stop or trying something different in general on strategy. The Red Bull and Max, I think Max, with him in P5, I think honestly the best thing for him to do would be to run as long as possible with the first stint into the race to give him fresher tyres for the rest of the race. But also, if they do use, which you have to assume they will, that extra set of medium tyres that they will have for most likely the final stint of the race, if they can get, say, 25 or so laps in, then that gives them a good advantage in those final 20 laps, especially if Ferrari are not that far ahead of them. So I think with Red Bull, obviously both Red Bulls have got an extra set of mediums compared to the others. I think that's probably what they'll do. Just run a bit longer to try and have that advantage later on. And then for McLaren don't have anything to lose. So if I was McLaren, I would just run as long as they can into the race and see just where they shake out regarding, how quick they are. And, let's say McLaren, or let's say Mercedes and Ferrari have pitted both their cars by lap 25, and both McLarens are still out there. If by lap 25, McLaren are ahead of the 2 Mercedes and 2 Ferrari cars who've already pitted, but let's say Russell in the Mercedes is, I don't know, 12 seconds or so behind, maybe they could pull up a 1-stop race from there. They would have to go probably past lap 30 before they pitted. They'd probably have to pit, probably to make it work. Lap 32, lap 33, if they did have that sort of gap to Russell by lap 25. But again, if they do, or even maybe a bit of a bigger gap than that, then I don't see why they shouldn't at least try to do a one-stop strategy with at least one of their cars, because McLaren have got nothing to lose. They're the slowest of the front four teams, and if they're going to get into the mix, they've got to try something different. They just copy what everyone else does, they're going to end up finishing 6th and 7th, unless we have chaos ahead of them. So do watch out for McLaren, because I think they might take a big risk on strategy, which may pay off if, if they're maybe not too far behind Mercedes through that first stint or so. So keep an eye on the Papia McLarens. But in terms of the strategy side, it is going to be a very interesting race today. Very interesting race, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Again, it should be at least a 2-stop. Maybe, though, we'll see a couple cars going for a 3-stop. But, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this one. I think we're going to get a good one today, as we are just under an hour now to go until the race gets underway in Austria. So I think I'm just going to have a quick sip of my water again, and then I will go through some of your comments in the chat for the next half an hour or so. So keep them coming. Keep your comments coming. Let me know what you think is going to happen in the race today, and I'll get to your comments soon enough. Right, so let's see what you guys are having to say. And hello to all of you in the chat. You're good to see you all. Ofter is saying, afternoon Chazza, I think George will win today. Apparently he had front wing issues in Barcelona, which meant, I don't know, couldn't pull away from Lewis. I didn't hear about those front wing problems. I don't think it was front wing problems. I think he just couldn't manage his tyres well enough. And also, Ofter is asking, do you think George lifted enough? Not for me. Not for me. Lunar Classics, Russell isn't really not that good in races. It's not that he's not that good. It's that, as I said in my, I did a video about the two Mercedes drivers. I think it was very start of this month. I think it was on the 1st of June, actually, that I did this video. But I remember saying in that video that with Russell, and this is just true with Russell, he makes his weekend in qualifying. If he has a great qualifying, he will then go on to have a great or a good result in the race. But if he doesn't have a great qualifying, then he won't improve on that in the race. He'll just continue at whatever pace or performance level that he was at. Did a great job in qualifying. He was quickest. I think even, let's say Max didn't have his accident, I think Russell would have ended up getting on pole, because that was a very good lap from him at the end of the session. I think what we tend to see with Russell is he will maintain about the same pace in the race, but he just doesn't have as, say, good of skill as others do at certain things that you need to be good at in race situations. For example, Russell's racecraft, I don't think is that great. I don't think he's that great either at managing tyres. I don't think he's. I certainly don't think he's as good as that as say Max or Lewis or even at the minute his teammate. To be honest, but what carries him through again is the pace that he has from qualifying. He is very much a I wouldn't say a qualifying driver, but again, if qualifying doesn't quite go right for him, then that's basically him done. When we've seen with Verstappen and Hamilton and even Leclerc, if qualifying doesn't quite go right for them, they still manage to pick it up on race day. I mean, we've seen plenty of times, for example, with Max Verstappen in the last 2-3 years, where not had the greatest qualifying, but then he is at his best in the race and ends up winning. I don't think Russell has that same ability, but he's on pole. He's got very good pace. The Mercedes car looks to be the fastest. So if he doesn't win today, then I just don't see how he can possibly even contend. Um, for the championship. I mean, if he wins today, absolutely, you'd have to say he's getting himself back into contention for the championship because, um, you know, if he wins and say Kimi finishes below second place, it will go down to 40 or just under 40 points between the two. And obviously, next Grand Prix is Russell's home race. We've still got, I think, just over half the season left. So, yeah, still plenty of time to go. But today is a massive chance. George Russell has to win the race today. He cannot afford to finish any lower than first. Off Driz says, in my opinion, the FIA messed up terribly. A single wave yellow in turn 8 and 9, a high speed accident, and that's not a double yellow, a single yellow. Imagine a car came and spun and hit Max. Yeah, FIA messed up. That's pretty much nailing on the point that I made. I just don't think it was. I just don't think that it was the right reaction, let's say, to that accident being a single waved yellow. There was Rosberg at Hungary 2016 as well. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he got pole going through a yellow flag. I remember that. I can't remember. Was it Alonso or someone like that who went off track or stopped or something like that? And yeah, Rosberg ended up improving and going on pole. But I think the reason Rosberg I think got away with that was because the track, it was wet at the start of qualifying and it dried out. So everyone was gaining massive lap time anyway, even if they were going through a yellow flag. So I think that's the excuse that got him away from any punishment, was that, oh well, we were all gaining massive time because of the movement from um the movement from wet conditions to dry conditions. After this, I think I was on your stream for the 2019 Mexican GP quali where Max went through double yellows. Yeah, I remember that, actually. We called it at the time. We said Max has got pole wrongly. What was stupid about that incident, though, in Mexico was the FIA didn't even look into it. The only reason they gave him a penalty was because Max, in the post-qualifying press conference, admitted that he kept his foot down under yellow flags. That's why they punished him and gave him a penalty. But for some reason, they didn't even look into it at the time, even though it was obvious that he had just kept his foot flat down despite Bottas being in the wall. But that was during the Michael Massey era. So, I mean, can you really compare it to, you know, to what we have today or what we had before Michael Massey? Michael Massey was just so terrible as race director. His running of Formula One was abysmal, quite frankly. And, that controversy regarding, the final race in 2021 was not only a culmination of him being terrible, it was inevitable because he had gotten so many things wrong in just, what, 2-3 years as being race director. Not only that incident, but what was it? You had a incident in Turkey where they started qualifying when there was a tractor in the wet pulling away a car in Turkey, where Michael Massey got absolutely battered for that in the media, and I think by Sebastian Vettel, and rightly so. So that was inevitable that was going to happen. Astro asking, will Verstappen start from fifth, or is there enough damage to force him to start from the pit lane? No, he's fine. He will be starting from fifth place, no doubt about it. And Astro gives his prediction: Hamilton to win, and then Leclerc second, Piastri third, and then Hajar, Lindblad, Bortoleto, Hulkenberg, Ocon, Albon, Sainz. Looney Classic says Ferrari have to hope they have better tyre deg than Mercedes. The thing is, and I think it is kind of skewing people's idea of what happened at the last Grand Prix in Spain. The reason Ferrari won the last Grand Prix was not necessarily because they had better tyre deg. It was because they chose a better strategy and they had the pace to pull it off. That's why they won. Tyre deg wise, they were about the same as Mercedes. They weren't really significantly better off in that regard. If they were significantly better off, then Hamilton probably would have passed Russell before he decided to go to a 3-stop strategy. So, I feel like, and I'm not saying you Looney Classics in the chat are saying this, because I don't think you are, but I feel like there are a few people out there, maybe Ferrari fans, who think, well, because of what happened in the last Grand Prix, we'll have better tyre deg today than Mercedes and will win. When, again, I don't think that really understands why Ferrari actually won the last Grand Prix. Again, it was because they went for a better strategy and they had the pace to pull it off. If they didn't have enough pace to pull it off, it wouldn't have worked. They would have ended up finishing second. But because they had the pace, not necessarily, I mean, they were the quickest over the course of the race, but it wasn't by a lot. It was still a close gap between Ferrari and Mercedes, but it was enough pace in Ferrari's advantage to pull it off. But again, if they were 2-3 tenths a lap slower than Mercedes in that race, then might not have pulled it off in the end. Let's have a look for a couple more comments if I can. Austria says the only possibility off the start for Ferrari, get a good start, more chance for win. But if they don't get into the lead, I think it's over for them today. And on to next week at Silverstone. Yeah, I kind of agree. If they're going to win today, I think really the start is where they need to really make that happen. But I really don't see them, even if they get a better start than Mercedes, unless Mercedes have a really bad start, I just don't see them pulling it off. Mercedes have pretty much fixed their starts now, so it's not really an issue for them anymore. So yeah, Ferrari second and third on the grid, but I don't feel like their chances of winning are as good as maybe some people may think. But maybe I'll be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. It'd be great to see Ferrari fighting for the win again, just like they were 2 weeks ago in Barcelona. In regards to Silverstone with Ferrari, theoretically they should be closer there because there's more corners, but I don't really think they will be closer at Silverstone. I think it will still be about 0.2 of a second in Mercedes's favour. I mean, 0.2 of a second per lap is it's not a massive gap. That's still close enough to where Ferrari maybe can do something. But yeah, I don't think Ferrari still have a fast enough car to where they can go out and definitely have the pace. Like, we are absolutely guaranteed to know that they've got the pace to win. I still think we are probably another Ferrari upgrade away from that. But I certainly do hope that at Silverstone, Ferrari are right there. But I think it will be Mercedes who are still the best team at Silverstone. I think the reason is because Silverstone, whilst it does have more corners than this track, it is still high speed, and in high speed corners, the Mercedes car is the best on the grid. The Ferrari is better in slower and medium speed corners, and there's not a lot at Silverstone of those. So, yeah. That's what I think going into the next Grand Prix. And if you're wondering what is the weather for the British Grand Prix next weekend, it is hot and sunny, so no chance of rain. Another reason there's no chance of rain is because we're already scheduled for another heat wave here in the UK. I think this time next week we've got another heat wave coming in, which will then be lasting for quite a few days. So yeah, we don't get much of a rest, unfortunately, from the blasting of heat that we've had. But we have got 41 minutes to go until the race gets underway. So I think what we're going to do is we are going to just do a quick roundup of the teams, and I'll just quickly go through, where they should all be at for the race today, what they should be aiming for. And then soon enough, in about 10 minutes or so, we'll bring Nib on and get his views of what happened yesterday, obviously with Russell and that whole incident, and we'll get into, obviously, his thoughts ahead of the race today. But let me just quickly go through the teams. So for Mercedes, unless they have issues managing in the heat, they should have a fast enough car to get the 1-2 today. Really should have had a 1-2 in qualifying if it wasn't for the yellow flag at the end. Russell on pole. Antonelli, we'll see how quickly he can get his way past the two Ferrari cars, or whether he can at all get past the two Ferrari cars. But Mercedes are the clear favourites to win today. No doubt about it. Even though the gap between them and the rest is not massive in terms of the advantage they have per lap, it's big enough that they should win this race comfortably. For the prancing horse, Ferrari, a podium is really what they should be aiming for. If we get a dropout from, say, Verstappen or one of the Mercedes cars, that would really help Ferrari's case today. But if all the front runners stay in the race, then I think it's going to be a tough race for Ferrari today. Second and third on the grid is a bit of a better position, really, than they deserve. I think fourth and fifth is really more realistic of where they should have been in qualifying. If Antonelli does get past them quickly enough, then I think they can forget about fighting Mercedes, really. And even Lewis Hamilton, in his post-qualifying interview, did talk about that. They think it's going to be pretty hard to fight Mercedes because they are clearly quicker than them this weekend. That's his words, not mine. The main fight for them, I think, is covering off Max Verstappen in the Red Bull if they want to get on the podium. That is the fight that they need to focus on. If Max is not quite as quick as we saw in qualifying, then advantage Ferrari. Yeah, if Ferrari are able to manage the tyres better, then again, advantage Ferrari. But if Max can at least match his pace from qualifying, which was quicker than Ferrari by a tenth or so, then I think it's going to be a pretty tough ask for them to finish on the podium. But definitely possible, no doubt about it. From second and third on the grid, it is definitely possible for them to be on the podium, despite them not having maybe as much pace as it seems. Red Bull, yeah, disappointing qualifying in the end. 5th and 8th they are on the grid. Really should have been 3rd and 8th. Max Verstappen, I think, is really the one to watch out for today. He has a bit more pace in his Red Bull than where he is on the grid. And hopefully we will get a good race-long battle, at least between him and the two Ferrari cars. Maybe Antonelli as well. We'll see. But yeah, Max, I think, is the one to look out for. And I think if anyone outside of the top 4 is going to get a podium, I think it's very, very likely going to be Max Verstappen. So watch out for Max. Keep your eye on Isaac Hadjar as well. Red Bull should be decently quick today. And I don't see why Hadjar can't beat the McLarens. Not saying he will, but I think he'll be pretty close to them through the race. And for McLaren, unfortunately, they are the slowest of the front 4 teams. If the front 5 do finish the race and don't have any major issues, then McLaren will most likely finish in 6th and 7th place. Audi, once again, not making the top 10. I think they're going to need probably 2 or 3 DNFs to help them out if they're going to finish in the points. Racing Bulls and Alpine clearly have a faster car. Audi looking about as quick as the Haas team this weekend, so they've got a decent pace, just not enough to finish in the points on pure pace, in my view. Haas have got Oliver Behrman in 13th. Behrman's still doing a great job in that car. Can he drag it somehow into the points? If he can, that'd be an amazing result. Racing Bulls, 9th and 10th on the grid. As long as they finish at least there, or maybe higher if they can benefit from any DNFs or crashes or whatever ahead of them, then that is brilliant for them, as they really are now setting their sights with the pace they've got on closing the gap ahead of them to Alpine in the championship. And Alpine, whilst they don't have a car in the top 10, they do have Pierre Gasly in 11th place, a driver we know who is pretty quick around this circuit. I think he will get into the top 10. I think Gasly has got the pace to be in the top 10 today. Colapinto as well should improve from 16th. Alpine should be a bit better off in today's race. Williams, absolutely terrible. Aston Martin, shower of shite. And Cadillac, watch out for them. Maybe they, if there are a few retirements, like we've seen this season in pretty much each race, we've had a few retirements, maybe can get a decent result. But here is a reminder, guys, of my race prediction. George Russell, I think, will win the race by a few seconds from Kimi Antonelli 2nd. Max Verstappen just about, I think, will finish in 3rd. Ahead of Leclerc 4th, Hamilton 5th, Norris 6th, Piastri 7th, Hadjar 8th. And then a lap down will be Lawson in 9th, and Pierre Gasly, I think, will finish in P10. So that's my prediction for the race. Let me know whether you guys agree or disagree, as we've got just under half, or just over, rather, half an hour to go. until the race gets underway. As I'm just looking at the broadcast in a minute, as we've got the cars, they're just going around on the track. Obviously, they're doing their laps to the grid as the pit lane closes in about 5 minutes' time. So they're just finding out what the track conditions are like before they get parked up on the grid for all the pre-race stuff. But I'll just wait for the next minute to tick over. And there you go. 34 minutes to go until the race gets underway here in Austria. One thing I am going to do quickly, though, is I am just going to leave my room and just go and fill my water bottle back up because, yeah, it is hot outside. My throat, because of the air, it's quite dry. That's why my throat doesn't sound great, because it's, yeah, the air is just very dry. So I'm just going to go fill my water up, and I'll be back with you guys in, hopefully, say 30 or 40 seconds from now. So just hold tight, and I'll be back in a sec. Right, there you go. Hopefully that wasn't too long. But yeah, in a couple minutes, we will bring Nib on to get his thoughts ahead of this race. But before we do, let me just post a link for the stream. Let me just post it out one final time. And then we'll bring him on in a second. Come to us here to watch along the race in Austria. And hopefully we'll get some more people hopping on soon enough. But a quick reminder that, what do you call it? Vettel Hamilton saying, let me guess, Chad, you predict Lewis Hamilton finish 5th because he has a bad start, which can cost him some position. Not at all. Clearly, you didn't listen to earlier when I made my prediction. Yeah, quickly before I bring Nib on, make sure to subscribe for more content like this if you are new to the channel. Either at the bottom right of the screen, you can do it there, or click on my channel name and just go to my channel page and subscribe there. Or not or, what was the other thing I was going to say? Yeah, smash the like button if you haven't already. Make sure to do that. Obviously, it does help the channel if you smash a like button. And as well, make sure to vote in the poll in the chat to let me know, who do you think is going to win this race? Will it be George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, Charles Leclerc, or Lewis Hamilton? Quickly, before I bring Nib on, there's another thing I need to do now. I just need to quickly go to the toilet, and then I will be back. So I'll be back with you guys, hopefully, very quickly in the next 30 seconds or so. So yeah, I'll be back very shortly, and then we'll bring in Nib on and get his thoughts ahead of the race, which, as you can see, starts in just under half an hour. Right, there you go. Hopefully, again, that wasn't too long. I don't think it was, for about 40 seconds or so. So, let me just adjust a couple things with my settings, and we'll bring Nib on. And get his thoughts ahead of this race. Make sure, by the way, to keep your comments coming in the chat. I want to hear from you guys ahead of the race, and still want to hear, obviously, what you guys have to say and what you think's going to happen. So yeah, keep your comments coming. Right. Let me open up Discord. And right, he's not there yet. He said it'll be another couple minutes or so. So I'll check back in a couple minutes. Messi X7 asking, do you think Ferrari will be stronger at Silverstone, as it's less of a power track now in these lower downforce cars? Theoretically, yes. But I still don't think they'll have the pace to win, unless Mercedes have like big tyre issues. Mercedes, I still think, will have the fastest car at Silverstone. Not by much, only a couple tenths, but that is still enough, you know, per lap to be still comfortably winning. You know, if they pull away in the race by a couple tenths a lap, by the end of the 52 laps at Silverstone, you're looking at what, like a 12-second, 13-second lead. So I think Ferrari are still lacking say another 2 to 3 tenths. They're definitely closer though to Mercedes than they were, say, at the start of the season. At the start of the season, the gap was about half a second. Now it's more like 2 to 3 tenths. So the gap has closed. There is no doubt about it. But there is still work to be done. Still need more power. Still need some more new upgrades on the aero side. But yeah, another 2 or 3 tenths of a gain they need if they want to get on the same pace as the Mercedes team. Rishi saying, I bet on Max top 3. What do you think? Please reply, Jazz. Yeah, I think he will finish in the top 3. It'll be close between him and the Ferraris, but I think he will take 3rd. Champ says, I think Russell's going to take this one. I'm not a huge fan of the man, but he because he just always seems to get in his own way. As a driver, I like him. As a person, I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of Russell, but I like him as a driver. But I'll be honest, now that he has entered his first championship battle of his career, he hasn't impressed me. He really has not impressed me. I mean, even though he gained 18 points on Antonelli at the last race, that was literally because of Kimi's DNF. Antonelli was faster and better than Russell in that race and was fairly going to beat him before Antonelli's engine gave up. So if you look at this season, except for the first race in Melbourne, I don't think there's been a race really where Antonelli has not been quicker, clearly quicker than Russell. So yeah, I've just been disappointed by George. I just don't think he's quite risen to the occasion necessarily. But he's on pole here. He's got a big chance. And like I said earlier, he has to win today. No doubt about it. Must win. this race. Astro saying Russell's been really unlucky this year, though. I don't think he has been as unlucky as people think. Suzuka, yeah, to a degree, he was unlucky with the what was it, the safety car, was it, or the virtual safety car? I can't remember exactly. I think it was the safety car. He was unlucky with that, and then obviously Canada, he was unlucky with the with his DNF, but then in turn, Antonelli had his DNF in Spain. So I think it's very much cancelled out that bad luck that Russell had in Canada with Antonelli having his DNF in Spain. So if you look at why Antonelli is 50 points clear of George Russell, I'd say 90% of it is down to Antonelli just being better. I really don't think Russell can sit there and say, well, if it wasn't for bad luck, I'd be leading the championship. I don't think that's the case. Looney Classic says, if you don't like Russell's character, then you must hate Max Verstappen. Completely different, to be honest. I mean, I am not a fan of the way Max races people. Definitely not a fan. But I think Max is a lot more honest than Russell is. You know what you're getting with Max. He is not apologetic. He is not going to try and be a politician about it. He is what he is. Everyone knows that. With Russell, I do just get the feeling like he is a bit of a politician and he plays games. I just don't get a good feeling about him as a character. But with Max, again, I don't like the way Max goes about his racing, but at least he's honest about it. He's not gonna tell you or make out that he's some innocent child. When with Russell, if he raced the same way as Max, I think Russell would try to more so pretend that he was a lot more innocent. And I think that right there is the difference between the two. If you want to be a bit of a dick, at least be honest about it. The people that I really don't like in life are the ones that pretend they're not like that when they actually are. They try to give the impression that they're I wouldn't say innocent, but of much better character than they actually are. So that's really why I'm not a big fan of Russell as a character, as a person. But in terms of the driving side, I've always liked Russell. Always have. I've always been a big fan of his. But I think it is now time to bring Nib on. So I think we'll just bring him on quick. And hello, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah, all clear. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, mate. How are you? Are you no longer sweltering? I don't know what the temperature is today.
It's a lot more copable now. It's earlier this week I literally couldn't breathe. It was so bad. It's like nearly 10 degrees cooler now, so it's much more comfortable.
Lovely.
Yeah, it was like 20. I think on Wednesday it was like 28, 29. It was really horrible. Yeah, a lot better at the minute.
Sorry, that in a sentence is just very funny.
Yeah. At the track though, it is still very hot. It is, I think 30. I think yesterday it was 33. The air temperature. I think it's about that. Today maybe slightly hotter, pushing towards the mid 30s. In terms of Celsius, and in Fahrenheit, you're looking at what I think close to or about 95 Fahrenheit, something like that. So very hot at the Red Bull Ring. Regarding though, obviously this Grand Prix, the main bit or the main talking point, obviously, is what happened in qualifying yesterday with George Russell. What's your view on the situation? Obviously, Russell was allowed to keep pole. The stewards deemed that he lifted significantly enough. They were satisfied with how much he lifted. It was obviously a single waved yellow, not a double waved yellow or a red flag. What's your take on the whole situation?
Well, very clearly the FIA just fucked up. Um, it should have been a double waved yellow. It wasn't a double waved yellow, and therefore, because they deemed that Russell slowed significantly, they deemed that he could keep the pole. And very unlucky for Kimi Antonelli, who went through before Russell, still whilst Verstappen was in the wall, um, but did lift off and abort his lap. So think that really tells you all that needs to be said, is that Russell tried to break the rules and he got rewarded for it. And some of his comments when this guy is head of the Drivers Association, it's unbelievable how this guy is the head of the drivers organization when he is the most self-righteous, only cares about something when that happens to him. It blows my mind, but whatever.
It's funny with Russell because I guarantee if Max, and this is why I don't like him as a person, because if Max had done the same thing, he would have gone absolutely crazy, especially if he was the one who had put it in the barrier at that final corner. So yeah, in terms of sportsmanship, definitely unsportsmanlike from Russell. Technically speaking, as I said earlier, he abided by the regulations, but that's only because the stewards said that he lifted enough for what their opinion is of enough of a lift in a single yellow flag zone. But that's the problem, is it comes down to interpretation of, what is enough of a lift and what isn't. And it should be a much more strict definition rather than a lot more vague like it is. So yeah, Russell, he's on pole by, I think, officially about quarter of a second. He lifted, I think, officially just under 100 meters before the corner. That's what the stewards say regarding, regarding the incident, in terms of they are satisfied with his lift, but we obviously have our opinions, and you guys in the chat will have your opinions as well. But starting from pole, and Antonelli, obviously, like you said, Nib, he lifted, which I think was ethically the right thing to do. And I think at the time, he wouldn't have expected Russell to pretty much just keep on it like he did. It has cost Antonelli a bit, because Antonelli has been, most of the time, quicker than Russell this weekend, except for practice 3. And now we've got Russell on pole, and Antonelli has got 2 Ferrari cars ahead of him. Obviously, we saw in Spain, Antonelli eventually did get ahead of Russell before his DNF, despite having a Ferrari in between them for a bit of that race. What do you think Antonelli can do today to get back at Russell? Do you think he can fight with Russell, or do you think Russell, with the 2 Ferraris in between, has just got too much of a buffer between him and his teammate?
Yeah, George definitely should be favourite for today's race, but I mean, the pace that Antonelli has had in races this season, has been remarkable. So I don't think you can rule him out. But George obviously has to be the favourite after what happened in qualifying.
Absolutely. And yeah, Antonelli, he will obviously be tasked with getting past those Ferraris, maybe even Max in the Red Bull if he's in there as well. It is easier to overtake here, but also one thing we do see here at the Red Bull Ring is obviously it used to be called a DRS train. Now it's obviously we don't have DRS. It's now, I guess, if we call it overtake mode train. So if the Ferrari cars do stick close to each other, might make it a bit more difficult for Antonelli to, to make his way past those, those Ferrari cars if they are keeping close to one another. But if Antonelli can show the pace that he's shown for most of this weekend and he gets past those Ferrari cars early, I think we might just get an interesting fight up front. But again, it depends purely on how quickly Kimi can get his way past the Ferrari cars and whatever other traffic he has to deal with in the first, say, stint of the race. It was such a shame, though, with Max that he had that crash, because I'm not saying he was going to be on pole, but he was not going to be very far from it. I think he was definitely going to be ahead of the Ferrari cars if it wasn't for the accident. He did the fastest middle sector in qualifying right before his accident, so he was on it, but then the rear wing for him failing, which resulted in him going into the barriers. With Max, do you see him right in that fight for the podium, or do you think Ferrari are a bit too strong?
I think you would imagine over a race distance that that Ferrari are going to be too strong. I mean, it was definitely going to be. I think Max probably would have ended up behind the Mercedes, um, with the Ferraris behind him if he had made it through the second to last corner. So I think Max can make more of a difference over one lap than he can over the whole race distance, especially with these cars. Clearly, the Red Bull upgrade has helped, but now we need to see how much it helps over a race distance.
Absolutely, because they've not been that great in races in terms of like compared to qualifying. Qualifying has been definitely more so the highlight in the last few races for Red Bull compared to what they've ended up doing in the races. But yeah, I think it will be, even if Ferrari win the battle, finish on the podium, I think Max will still be close in there, as we've got 10 minutes now, just under, or just over rather, 10 minutes to go until the race gets going. What are you going for your podium prediction then for today?
I'm gonna go with Antonelli to win the Grand Prix, and then I'll go with Russell and then Hamilton in third.
Well, certainly, if Antonelli does win, it'll be an exciting race, no doubt about it. Especially if those two Mercedes are going wheel to wheel plenty of times, like we saw back in Montreal. If you guys missed my prediction earlier, yeah, I think my podium was Russell, Antonelli, and Max in third, as we're just seeing the McLarens there on the grid, on the broadcast. Let me just quickly, though, before we get into this race, read out a couple comments quick from the chat, and hopefully some predictions. Champ says, I actually like Max more. I think there has to be something else. I view Max as gritty and skilled. I see Russell as cunning and capable. Cunning, I can agree with that, but not sure about capable, to be honest.
Think of another close word to cunning there for Russell.
Yeah. And yeah, Champ saying Max is authentic. And yeah, I think that is why I like Max a lot more than a lot of the other drivers. Because again, even though I don't agree with the way he goes about racing, he's real about who he is, the way he approaches, Formula One and racing in general, you're not going to get any bullshit with him. When with others, like Russell, and I mean, we've seen other drivers in the past who've been a bit more politician-like in terms of just the way they, manage what they say, or say exact words. We've seen that before, but with Max, I think that's a big part of his appeal, is how authentic the guy is. Let me just scroll a bit further up quick. Astra saying this year's 2-horse race versus last season's 2-horse race, this time last year with Piastri winning and looking so strong versus Kimi this year. I thought you were talking about last year's race. I was going to say Norris won last year's race, but no, you're talking about the championship. Piastri was, he did have a decent lead this time last year. It was like 20 odd points, I think it was. But Antonelli is 41 clear of Hamilton, and then 50 points clear of Russell. So it's not really comparable. But in terms of a teammate battle for the championship, because Antonelli has a much more significant lead over Russell in the standings. So yeah, I think Antonelli, his gap at this point, a lot more comfortable than what Piastri had, which again I think was around 20-30 points or something like that by this time last year. And yeah, Rook's just posting there in the chat. Air temperature 34 degrees, track temperature 45. So not as hot as yesterday. Yesterday's track temperature was 52 degrees Celsius. So maybe a few degrees cooler track temperature might just help certain teams out, but we'll see. Obviously, when we get into the race again, if you haven't joined us yet, or you're just joining us here on the stream, it is expected very much to be a 2-stop race for everyone, at least a 2-stop race. But let me just finish up the poll in the chat, asking you guys who will win the Austrian Grand Prix today, and 45% of you have gone for Lewis Hamilton. Let's see if he can take his second win in a row. 25% for Antonelli, 18% for Leclerc, and 12% for Russell. I think very much a lot of people hoping Russell doesn't win today because of what happened yesterday, and I can absolutely understand that, but there's a big difference between hoping someone won't win and actually expecting it in terms of pure performance. But we'll see. You just never know. We've seen plenty of times here in Austria, pole position not win the Grand Prix. I think it's happened actually more times than not. So yeah, we'll see what Russell can do from pole, whether initially he can get a good enough launch off the line. But just 5 minutes to go now to the race. Let's get into a couple final details before we get underway. Firstly, the championship standings. Kimi Antonelli, the leader, comes into this race 41 points clear of Lewis Hamilton. Russell in third, 50 points behind, has to win today. Leclerc fourth, only 2 points clear of Lando Norris. Piastri a further 5 points behind. In sixth, Max Verstappen. In seventh, Gasly eighth. Isaac Hadjar in ninth, to be looking to go up to eighth today, if he can. And then Liam Lawson still in the top 10. On the constructor side, Mercedes just over 70 points clear of Ferrari. McLaren in third, Red Bull fourth, Alpine in fifth. Racing Bull sixth, 20 points clear of Haas in seventh, who are 10 points clear of Williams in eighth. Audi still ninth, only on 2 points. Aston Martin 10th on 1 point, and Cadillac on 0. But let's now get into your starting grid for the Austrian Grand Prix. On the front row, it is George Russell starting from pole for the first time ever here in Austria, with Charles Leclerc in second. Lewis Hamilton then in third, and the championship leader, Kimi Antonelli, is fourth. Max Verstappen, who has won this race multiple times, starts in fifth ahead of world champion Lando Norris in sixth. On the fourth row, it is Oscar Piastri and Isaac Hadjar. And then completing the top 10, Racing Bulls, Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad. Just outside of the top 10, Pierre Gasly and Gabriel Bortoleto. 13th and 14th, Oliver Behrman and Nico Hulkenberg. 15th and 16th, Esteban Ocon and Franco Colapinto. 17th and 18th, the two Williams of Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon. Penultimate row of the grid, the two Cadillacs of Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas, who won here 9 years ago. And on the back row of the grid, Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. That is your grid for this 2026 Austrian Grand Prix. And it will be a 71 lap race. Rook saying everyone on the medium tyres except Bortoleto and Sainz. What tyres are Bortoleto and Sainz on? Please let me know if you can. But yeah, no surprise that everyone is on the medium. That is the clear best tyre to start on. Not really surprised Williams have split their strategy because they've got such a slow car. They've got to try something. We'll see with Bortoleto how it pays off. Right, soft tyres. So Bortoleto and
I'm
Sainz
not sure.
Going for a gamble there. But yeah, everyone else other than Bortoleto and Sainz on the medium compound of tyre. As they're all now lined up on the grid, and we await the beginning of the formation lap. It is obviously an uphill run into turn one, not that long of a run into turn one. It really, what matters is your exit from turn one, so you can get a great run up to turn three, and then maybe get a move done on the straight in between 3 and 4. So if you get a bad run out of turn one, it really can cost you a lot of positions. As we're just saying there on the broadcast, Lewis Hamilton and now Charles Leclerc. Leclerc started second last year, but was immediately done around the outside by Piastri into turn one and then ended up third in the race. And that is George Russell. Last time Russell, I think, started on pole at this track was back in F2 in 2018. So he's done it before, but not in Formula One. As the tyre blankets all come off. The umbrellas come away, obviously, to keep the cars cool. And the formation lap set to begin at a searingly hot Red Bull Ring. As the formation lap begins right now. And there you go, Russell pulling away pretty quickly. And then the Ferrari's pulling away a bit slower. And as I said earlier, Mercedes, they have improved their starts quite a bit from earlier in the season. So Ferrari do not have the advantage that they had previously. But as I said, the start here, it's not just about the run to turn one. You've got the run between turn one and turn three, and then turn three to turn four. So as long as you have a good run on the car ahead, you've got a couple opportunities to make a move before the end of the first lap. As the front half of the field already going on the straight between 3 and 4. Two McLarens, 6th and 7th. They dominated this Grand Prix last year. Obviously had a race-long battle, the two McLarens. In what was a McLaren 1-2. Now they're struggling to even get really... Well, they're not even in the top 5. And I think they'll struggle to be in the top 5 today. As very quickly, George Russell now entering the zone where he lifted off earlier in qualifying, as weekend attendance there sold out 320,000. Still plenty of Verstappen fans, despite Verstappen not being in a position for the championship. They all still come to will him on, as the front half of the field now just lining up on the grid. As Piastri, we're just seeing him line up on the cleaner side of the grid compared to his teammate. As now we look towards the rear of the field, the two Aston Martins just coming through the final corner. And very shortly, we will be underway. As the final couple cars line up. So what does this hot Red Bull Ring have for us today? Who will win in the Styrian Mountains? We are about to find out. As the lights come on, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights. And it's go in Austria, and Russell gets a decent start and immediately covers Leclerc, cuts him off, and leads into turn 1 as Antonelli going around the outside of Hamilton, but no, he sticks behind. Antonelli actually went off at turn 1, but he gets now right in the slipstream of Leclerc. Norris there, having a go at Max Verstappen up to turn 3, but Verstappen keeps ahead as one of the Ferraris there going a bit wide, as Antonelli going off again at turn 3. And there's a Racing Bulls car side by side with the McLaren, and the Racing Bulls just tucking in behind. They know the fight is not with McLarens. The Ferraris are nearly side by side. Coming up to turn 6, will Leclerc go right around the outside? Hamilton has got himself ahead of Leclerc. So Hamilton up to 2nd, Leclerc 3rd, and then it's Antonelli and Verstappen, and then 2 McLarens, as Isaac Hadjar has dropped down, I think, to 9th place. But Russell leads this Austrian Grand Prix and has a decent lead already on lap 2 of 71, as Antonelli up the inside of Leclerc at turn 1 and goes off again. That's 3 times he's gone miles off the track. But is he letting Leclerc back through? Yes, he is. And he should. But now he's got Max Verstappen all over him, but Leclerc's gone a bit wide. This is brilliant for Max Verstappen. But Antonelli, has he got the inside line? Not quite. As Verstappen pulls around the outside. Is Max going to get both overtakes done? No. Not quite. Leclerc covers it off. Max switches back underneath. Does he get a better exit? Yes, he does. And Max Verstappen, 2 overtakes there. And he's up to 3rd. As Antonelli really struggling. Why, Nib, is Antonelli going off the track so much? Has he got damage?
Oh my god, that drone camera was unbelievable. But yeah, surely Antonelli's got some form of issue. He can't keep it on the track. But what a move that was by Hamilton at the start, Chaz. My goodness, Unk still has it.
That drone, by the way, it was incredible. It also made me feel incredibly sick, as the two McLarens have actually swapped positions. Piastri is ahead of Norris, and Hamilton does a fastest lap, a 1:12.0, and is within a second of Russell. So looking quick.
Yeah, Piastri got Norris on the first lap down at turn 4, I think it was.
And he's right up with this pack of Verstappen, Leclerc, and Antonelli. As Ocon's had a great start. He's gone from 15th up to 11th. As Leclerc, the Bottas there. Fire extinguishers out. His car's on fire again, just like it was in practice. And it looks like he's out of the race. Ocon up to 11th. Bortoletto in 12th. Gasly 13th. Hulkenberg 14th. Behrman 15th. And then Sainz 16th. Albon 17th. Perez is up to 18th. And then Colapinto 19th. And then, Bottas out of the race. I'll update that in a second. As we're on lap 4. As Lawson is saying he's got a fire in his or on his car, but I can't see anything at the minute. But he's still going along okay enough at the minute. He's got Isaac Hadjar right behind him, who's surely going to overtake him. The Red Bull is much quicker. And he does. As Lawson actually cuts back underneath and gets right back past Hadjar. And Hadjar, will he re-overtake? He does. At turn 4, will Lawson give up the position now? Yeah, I think he cuts back underneath, but I think he's going to just slot back in behind. He knows the Red Bull is too quick. As out front, Russell now 1.1 seconds clear of Hamilton. So he's pulled the gap over a second, which means that Hamilton will not get overtake boost or overtake mode. As we begin lap 5. Max Verstappen now has the fastest lap. Max is only just under 3 seconds off the lead, as Lawson says he's still on fire. And he's got his teammate right behind him. I'm not sure if he means him physically or the car, but...
They believe from the brakes.
Right. As the midfield looks insanely close out there. As Perez has now got loads of smoke in his cockpit. That's not good. And he's in the pits as well. That is bad news. And Perez has stopped. Both Cadillacs out of the race. That is such a shame. They had lots of overheating issues on Friday. And it's happened again. So, both Cadillacs are out, as Russell pulled the gap up to 1.3 seconds now over Hamilton on lap 6. As Antonelli now stuck behind Charles Leclerc and needing to find a way through, because he's already 5.5 seconds behind his teammate after 6 laps. So already 2 retirements. As Antonelli is a bit close to Leclerc, but not close enough, I don't think, to go for an overtake in turn 4, no. As the two McLarens are sticking not too far behind, but Leclerc really feels like he's struggling in these early laps. And we'll see whether he can get more so on the pace of his teammates. George Russell on the previous lap did a fastest lap of a 1:11.6, which is a pretty fast lap time at this stage of the race. Is 1.7 seconds clear of Lewis Hamilton. And Max Verstappen, actually, is only just over a second behind. So Ferrari do not have the pace right now. As Bortoletto looking for a move on Ocon into turn 1 on the soft tyre. But not able to make it. So those soft tyres are working over Bortoletto. It's going to have another go. Up to turn 3. Here is Antonelli. Right in the slipstream of Leclerc. Leclerc defends to the inside. Kimi, though, I think not quite brave enough to go for the outside line. Is he going to try a switch back? He does, but not enough grip. Is Antonelli going to go for the inside line? He does! But Leclerc still holds that outside line. But Antonelli has to get past. The Ferrari clearly is slower at this stage of the Grand Prix. And Antonelli has got past Leclerc into the penultimate corner. So there you go. As Lando Norris, for some reason, just dropped off the transponder briefly. But Antonelli now up to 4th on lap 8. I don't know why we haven't seen a replay of the start as of yet. I know there's a lot of action going on, but still.
Let's say too much action.
As now we've got Max Verstappen right up behind Hamilton. But at the minute, Nib, does look like Mercedes and Red Bull with Verstappen looking pretty quick.
I mean, Verstappen has constantly been quicker than Hamilton to start this Grand Prix here. I feel like it is just a matter of time before he passes Hamilton here.
Yeah, Hamilton has been dropping consistently 0.3 or so away from Russell, and Max has been lapping at about the same pace as Russell. As we're now on lap 9, and Verstappen only 0.7 behind as they start lap 9. And Verstappen gets a good exit, and Hamilton, I think, might have to get defending pretty soon. Up to turn 3, Verstappen's not close enough, but can Max get a good enough exit? It's, no, not quite good enough, but lower down, Leclerc still struggling. He's now got Piastri only about a second or so behind him. And Isaac Hadjar, just to confirm that Red Bull are looking quick, Hadjar is only a second behind Lando Norris. So both Red Bulls on the move. As Leclerc being told tyre degradation is as expected. As the front 3 are just coming through the final couple corners now. And they very shortly will begin lap 10 of 71. Lawson, despite whatever troubles, he is still going, and he is in 9th place still on lap 10. He's actually 2 seconds clear of his teammate now, so it looks like he's okay now. As Max looks a bit closer on this occasion, coming up to turn 3. Closes in the braking zone, but can he get the exit? Better than last time, but I still don't think it's good enough. And no, Max is going to have to wait, but this is an inevitable overtake. As, yeah, Isaac Hadjar lower down. He's now within a second. He's now just 0.7 behind Lando Norris. So I think Hadjar very well could be passing the McLaren there of Norris. As Russell told Verstappen could trigger this early. He is very close to Lewis. They're talking there about the undercut. To be fair, with the pace Max has got, if he can get past Lewis in the next lap or so, I don't think he necessarily needs to be super aggressive. We're only on lap 11. And Russell, at the minute, he's got about 3.5 second gap, so Russell's comfortable for the minute from the undercut, as Max says he's got really bad brake pulling, I think that's said. As Max up to turn 3, he's going to send it on Hamilton and pushes Hamilton to the edge of the track. It was rude, but it was clean. And Max Verstappen is up to
Vintage.
second. Oh no, it's Hamilton. Comes back at him. And he gets it done round the outside. Brilliant move from Hamilton, but will Max come back into turn 6? Round the outside. They're so close to each other. And Max onto the gravel, but Max is still trying to hold it. But eventually has to give up. What brilliant racing between these two. But Verstappen still keeping really close. This is helping, though, the two Mercedes cars. Russell now 5 seconds clear in the lead. And Antonelli is now nearly right up with these two. As through turn 1, Verstappen didn't get a great exit, but he's still close to Hamilton. As Max saying, that's a penalty, clear penalty. We'll have to see a replay of that. But out of turn 3, Max gets a good exit, but not quite as good as the Ferrari. And yeah, there's no way he's going to send it from there. But I don't know. On first glance, what did you think? Was that Max being pushed off? It seemed to me like he ran out of track, really.
Yeah, I need to see a replay, to be honest.
Yeah, and talking of replays,
Bit difficult to see from the drone.
Yeah, finally we have got a replay of the start. I'll let you take us through
Oh
it
my
when
god,
to get to
a
it.
replay the start. That is a miracle. It feels like everyone got away like very evenly. Piastri got squished out a little bit by Hadjar. Antonelli went going all over the curbs. Hamilton into the pits, Chaz.
He is. This is a very early pit stop. Considering he started on the mediums, we expected them to go at least 5 laps longer. I couldn't quite see what tyres he went on. Probably a set of hard tyres, I'd imagine. But
Yeah, it was definitely the hard.
We're just seeing a replay of Leclerc. He had a decent start. Russell cut him off. Absolutely fine there. But we didn't quite see the rest of it develop. But yeah, Hamilton comes out in 11th place in between Bortoleto and Ocon. So out front, it is Russell leading now from Verstappen, and Antonelli is now third and just over a second behind Verstappen. So we might get some racing there in a moment. But the midfield looking a bit down. It's still pretty close. You got Ocon up in 12th. Ocon, though, he's got Gasly and Hulkenberg right behind him. And then Behrman and Sainz look close, as here comes the other Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. So clearly this is a planned strategy. Our Ferrari, is this just an early first stop, or are they planning a 3-stop? We'll have to see. As Hamilton up the inside of Bortoleto, and he's up now to 9th place as Leclerc drops down to 11th. So both Ferrari drivers now on the hard compound tyre. But no response from any of the other front runners. They are sticking out there. So Ferrari clearly going aggressive. We'll see if it pays off for them. In terms of...
Yeah, Ferrari.
Go on.
Ferrari were pitting to cover off Verstappen, and Verstappen is faster than Russell at the moment. So see how that works out.
Yeah, in terms of Russell out front, he doesn't have to pit yet because Hamilton is 25 seconds behind. So Russell can wait probably another 2, 3, maybe even 4 laps before he pits.
On that lap, Antonelli and Verstappen were 0.3 faster than Russell.
And yeah, Max, the gap was nearly 6 seconds. The gap is now just over 5 between Russell and Max. And yeah, Antonelli is pushing as well as Max there, locking up into turn 4. As Carlos Sainz is pitted, that's not a surprise. He started on the soft tyre. As noted, the Hamilton-Verstappen incident, forcing another driver off the track. Hopefully see a replay of that in a moment. We saw this though, didn't we, in Spain? I mean, it was after the first stint in Spain, but Russell, as the stints wore on, he just got slower and slower. So I wonder if we're seeing that again here. He just maybe pushed a little too hard on those tyres as we're on lap 16 of 71. Pierre Gasly has also pitted, and here is a replay. This is the wrong replay, really. This is a replay of Max, and this is how he passed Charles Leclerc earlier. Yeah, they're showing the wrong replay. Yeah, that was how Max passed Leclerc. That was not how Max passed Hamilton. Here we go. So, out of turn 4, Max gets a good run, and then he cut away from it. No, I don't think FOM actually know what they're doing. As Lewis Hamilton is up to 8th. As Hulkenberg is right behind Ocon, but just not able to find a way past. Yeah, Sainz is now last. Gasly is in 19th. May as well put him up to 18th because he's about to pass Lance Stroll. And on lap 17, the front 3 stay out. Piastri is in 4th. Piastri is about 13 odd seconds off the lead, so McLaren are not a factor.
13 on the dot.
Yeah, as Russell there, I think, just saying something about overheating.
No, he says one stop might be possible.
Well, how far behind is Hamilton now?
Hamilton is 24.7 seconds off the lead.
He's not gaining that quickly, is he?
No, it's only a couple of tenths a lap at this stage.
Yeah, well, I think that might be what moves them towards that. As Verstappen is still catching Russell, the gap now down to 5 seconds. Now 4.9 as they complete lap 17. And Antonelli about 1.6 behind Verstappen, so still close between these 3. As Hamilton is about to pass Liam Lawson, Charles Leclerc is about to pass Gabriel Bortoleto. Pierre Gasly has overtaken Fernando Alonso. As Lewis Hamilton is about to overtake Liam Lawson. Racing Bull still have a good race, very comfortably ahead of the midfield. As Bortoleto, the next midfield car behind them, pits from his soft tyre run. As Hamilton up the inside and is up to 7th. Yeah, Racing Bulls are having they're dominating the midfield, quite frankly. But yeah, Hamilton now 7th on the hard, Lawson on the medium, Lindblad is on the medium. Leclerc now up to 10th. And Bortoleto has come out ahead of Pierre Gasly. So he's covered off any undercut as Max Verstappen pits at the end of lap 18 and goes on. What tyres does he go on to? He has another fresh set of mediums. Hadjar pits as well. So pitting on the same lap.
He went on the hard.
Right, so I'm assuming they're going to use a set of mediums for the final stint. And he comes out behind Hamilton, but not that far behind. maybe a second and a half behind. So he's not really lost. He's lost, what, a second? So that's worked out pretty nicely for Max Verstappen. But what will Mercedes do? Will they react with George Russell? I think really they should. But so it's now Mercedes 1-2. And yet they are reacting. Russell been told to box. So Hamilton up to 5th. Verstappen 6th. Hadjar is down to 9th. As Lindblad is pitted as well. As Russell pits. Good pit stop on the hard tyres. And Piastri pits as well. So Antonelli and Norris now go through in 1st and 2nd. Russell should come out comfortably ahead of Hamilton. So Russell is 3rd. Hamilton 4th. Verstappen 5th. Piastri comes out in 7th because Lawson is just pitted. Actually, no, Piastri comes out behind Leclerc, who was ahead of him. But Piastri now has a few lap fresher tyres, so that'll help him. Piastri 6 seconds behind, but yeah, on fresher tyres now. So Hadjar 8th. Hulkenberg hasn't pitted. He's up to 9th. And then you've got Lawson 10th, who has pitted. Lawson has actually just been overtaken by Lindblad, who pitted a lap before. Lindblad, Behrman, and Lawson all very close. Go on.
McLaren has said to Norris that they're going to extend, they're going to keep him out. He's in the 14s. That would not be a good decision if McLaren keep Norris out.
Yeah, he's way too slow to make that work. He's only 2.5 seconds ahead of Russell, who's just pitted, so surely they'll have to bring him in.
Oh my.
As Behrman briefly did get up to 9th place, but now he's gone back down. So Lawson is 10th. Lando Norris has been now told to box.
On that previous lap, Verstappen was 2 seconds quicker than Antonelli.
And Verstappen is now right behind Hamilton. And has the fastest lap. Let me just update that we've got Bortoletto in 13th. Gasly 14th. And then Carlos Sainz is now 15th. He's having a decent race. As in comes Lando Norris. Had to come in. But Max Verstappen, I think, very much might be about to make a move on Lewis Hamilton as they exit turn 1, and he is close. Norris should come out in... I think he's going to come out, honestly, behind Hadjar, who's right behind Piastri, and he does. As there, Max Verstappen up the inside into turn 3. Will he keep it this time? Hamilton gets a good exit, though. Will he just go sailing right back around the outside? Yes, he will. So Hamilton keeps the position eventually, but Max still gets a good run out of turn 4. Will he think about sending it into turn 6? Yes, he does, up the inside. And this time again, rudely squeezes him out, but it is still clean. And he's up past Hamilton, and that's crucial for his race. Max Verstappen up into a net 2nd place.
What a move.
He had that's why Max is so good, because he is so aggressive in his overtaking, and he gets it done when he absolutely has to. And now he can set after George Russell, who he is only 3 seconds behind. Red Bull are absolutely in contention to win this race, especially when he's in his when he's at the wheel.
Antonelli's complaining that the brake pedal is going long.
Right, we'll see if when he comes in, if there's any possible retirement there. As that's Lando Norris going off the track at turn 3. As Antonelli stayed out, but he's only 9 seconds ahead of George Russell, as Isaac Hadjar is on the medium, so they're using that extra set of mediums that they saved with both Red Bulls. Hadjar is using it now, and presumably Max will use his in the final stint.
Smart by Red Bull, because they're getting all the data that they need for Verstappen's final stint now from Hadjar.
Yeah, and Hadjar is right up behind Piastri, as Russell gaining very quickly still on Antonelli on lap 24. Everyone in the top 10 is on the hard tyre except for Antonelli, who hasn't pitted and is leading. And, Hadjar in 7th has pitted. And we've got, Lando Norris, who is in 8th. And then it is Arvid Lindblad up in 9th ahead of his teammates. So he's got the jump there. So Lindblad 9th, Lawson 10th. Hulkenberg has pitted. He's just overtaken Carlos Sainz. Bortoletto is 11th. As, yellow flag, and it's for a Williams who has stopped. It's Carlos Sainz. He stopped on the pit straight. And that is perfect timing for Kimi Antonelli, who pits. Surely that's going to be at least a virtual safety car. They still haven't put it out, though. So, and now they do. So Antonelli has not gained anything from doing that. So, well, in hindsight, they should have waited a lap later, because I don't think they're going to clear that car away very quickly. So, Antonelli is now 5th on much fresher tyres. And don't know if that's an engine problem or just overheating. I can't hear the audio, but...
Oh. Yeah, the car just completely switched off out the final corner.
So, Sainz out of the race on lap 25. Oliver Behrman has just come into the pits. He's in 13th. And then you got Hulkenberg, Ocon. And then
By the way,
go on.
Sainz pit stopped at the perfect spot because it's literally right where the pit lane gate opens.
Oh, right. Yeah, I see it now. Yeah. As this is a replay of Lewis Hamilton. And they told him to box, and it was too late. They told him to box when he was in between the final 2 corners. He now does pit. So is that set of soft tyres they've just put on that Ferrari?
Yes.
So that's a 3-stop race then. So I told you guys it was possible if there was a virtual safety car. And here we go. So Hamilton has been given the same task as he was given 2 weeks ago to deliver hammer time for the rest of the race. Let's see how it pays off this time around. But the people who went a bit longer with their first stint, who only pitted like 3 or 4 laps ago, you can't pit because it will just completely ruin your strategy. So for Hamilton, I mean, he pitted, 12, 13 laps ago, so you can just about make that work. So Hamilton is now 7th behind Hadjar, as the VSC is about to end. As Antonelli saying, Bono, what is happening with these brakes? I have no confidence. As Bono says, got a brake split, mate. And then I can't remember what, or didn't quite see what the rest of it said, but we're on lap 27 now, and we are back underway. As that is Antonelli lapping an Aston Martin. And this is Hadjar right behind Piastri, and he's caught Piastri a slight bit unawares, but Piastri pulling away down the straight, so keeping ahead. But this is a problem for Hamilton, because unless those tyres are much faster than what Hadjar and Piastri are on, because Hadjar, who fake sends a dive bomb, if Hadjar, if he remains stuck behind Piastri, Hamilton is not going to have the straight line speed to overtake. So this could really hold up Hamilton and destroy his race. As
Yes, so Bono explained to Antonelli that basically one brake is hotter than the other, so that is his issue. So the car is pulling to the colder side.
right, as Piastri and Hadjar there just lapping the Aston Martin. So outside of the top 10, Bortoletto is 11th on the medium. I'll update that he's on the medium in a moment. And then it's Gasly 12th, Hulkenberg 13th, and then Behrman, Ocon, Albon, Colapinto, Alonso, and Stroll. And then 3 retirements so far, Sainz, Perez, and Bottas. As Antonelli is now right behind Leclerc. Antonelli, much fresher tyres, much faster car. He will get this done pretty soon.
Verstappen over Team Radio has responded after GP said there's yellows turn 10. Max has said that means flat out right past the car.
As into the section where Verstappen had his accident, Antonelli closes in on Leclerc. Gap only about half a second. As they both lap the other Aston Martin of Alonso, as Max Verstappen does the fastest lap of 1:11.0. Verstappen 4.5 seconds off the lead. But outside the top 10, you've got Bortoletto on the medium, Hulkenberg's on the medium, Ocon is on the medium. Behrman pitted under the virtual safety car as well to put hard tyres on. So Behrman's pitted twice as Antonelli looking to send it down the inside, but didn't have enough room there. And then, what do you call it? Albon is on the medium. And then Colapinto is on the hard tyre. And then soft tyre is on 2 Aston Martins. As we're on lap 30. And yeah, Hamilton now right behind Hadjar, but a bit stuck because Hadjar has that overtake mode on Piastri ahead. And if that continues that way, it's going to make it much harder for Hamilton to get past. Saying that, he's just got a brilliant exit not far behind these two of Antonelli and Leclerc on Hadjar. Will he send it up the inside? No, he just didn't quite have the room. The Aston Martin was a bit in the way there, but he will get a good exit. So does Antonelli from turn 3, and he goes blasting round the outside. And he's up to 3rd as Hamilton. Does he send it up the inside at turn 4 and Hadjar? He does. And does he get it done? Not quite. They're side by side. And Hamilton goes right round the outside. And he's up to 6th place. So Antonelli now 3rd, Hamilton in 6th, and Hamilton should pass Oscar Piastri pretty quickly. Leclerc, by the way, is, as Hamilton is still under pressure from Hadjar, Leclerc is really in trouble because Piastri, who's on much fresher tyres, is very quickly catching Leclerc. So Leclerc, at this rate, he could end up 7th or even 8th.
Leclerc's pace is absolutely nowhere, Chaz.
He is. He's got to be the slowest of the top 8 by far at the minute. He's going to be falling down the order very quickly.
Also, you were very right. Alonso completely got in the way before. Down into turn 3.
Yeah, prevented Hamilton from having a proper go. And yeah, Leclerc, he's in 4th, but I mean, he's only 2 seconds clear of Piastri. He's about, 3.5 seconds or just over clear of Hamilton. Lando Norris is a bit further behind in 8th, but he's catching as well. Leclerc is very much in trouble, having a really poor race. Lap 32, Max Verstappen continues to catch Russell. The gap, 4.1 seconds in Russell's favour, but Max is catching. If he can get the gap down by another couple seconds, then he is just about within the undercut range to at least put Russell under serious pressure. As Hamilton told Mode TS, and Hamilton asked, why do I have to go to Mode TS? Temperature? And Lewis says, I already have no power. Clearly wants more power, because obviously he's got to push harder now. He's on this more aggressive strategy as Russell there lapping Colapinto, who has very recently just passed Alex Albon for 16th. So very quickly they are lapping the midfield as we are nearly half distance. And Verstappen continuing to catch. And yeah, now he's just under 4 seconds behind. As let me just update that Colapinto is on the hard tyre, not the medium. That's Albon, who is in 17th. But Nib for Verstappen, of course, hasn't won a race this season, but not only is he hunting down his first win, he's hunting down the one he hates the most. How motivated do you think he is right now in that crash helmet?
Massively motivated. Yeah, Max is absolutely flying at the moment.
Yeah, he's another couple tenths quicker on this lap. Antonelli in 3rd is about 13 seconds off the lead.
Precisely.
But, I mean, it feels to me, unless Russell really drops off the pace, it really feels like Antonelli is heading for 3rd place at the minute. Unless
yeah, and Antonelli is going very quick, but yeah, just not enough. I mean, he gained 2 seconds on Russell on that lap, but yeah, nowhere near enough. And we're talking about how Leclerc's pace was absolutely nowhere. Russell, Verstappen, Antonelli all did 1 minute 11, 3 to 5s. Piastri, Hamilton did 1:11 sevens. Leclerc a 12.3. Absolutely no pace.
Yeah, now he's got Oscar Piastri about a second behind now, and surely we'll have the overtake mode at the beginning of the next lap. Piastri having a pretty good race, given that McLaren are the slowest of the front 4. If he overtakes Leclerc, he'll be up into 4th place.
Yeah, definitely Oscar's best race in a little bit.
Yeah, and not suffering with the tyres as much as he was in Barcelona, thankfully. As we are now on lap 35, half race distance. As Max Verstappen closes the gap now down to 3.5 seconds. And even though we're at half race distance, I don't think really any of the top 10 is fully settled yet. We have still got a long way to go to decide who wins this.
See, on that lap, Antonelli was 7 tenths faster than Russell and half a second faster than Verstappen. So I wouldn't rule out anything with Antonelli just yet.
Well, I think one thing, if Max obviously had his battle with Hamilton, if he can have that with Russell for 2 or 3 laps, that would really help Kimi close in like an extra 2-3 seconds. So I think, if he keeps catching, which he is, he just needs maybe a bit of luck in that department.
But surely they would just pit him before that happens, no? I mean, not with the way he's catching him at the moment. My goodness.
Well, we'll have to see what Mercedes' priorities are. But Max is really catching quickly now. The gap's down to 3 seconds. Mercedes have got to be thinking about a pit stop for Russell in the next 3 or 4 laps, because Max is going to be... Now it's down to 2.6. Russell is absolutely collapsing here. I don't know if it's traffic or he's just burnt the tyres out again, but Max is absolutely honing in on George Russell's. Alonso noted for speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah.
The only time...
He has a decent gap to Behrman in front, so definitely not traffic.
And now it's 2.3. Max is absolutely flying on this lap. As I was going to say with Alonso, that'll be the first time this season he's noted for going too fast. As Max Verstappen is... let's see what this lap time is. Yeah, that's, 6 tenths quicker? 7 tenths?
Yeah, I mean, Russell has lost about 8 tenths in the middle sector somewhere, so he must have had a little lock-up maybe at turn 3, which would explain. But yeah, gained 8 tenths on that lap, and Antonelli gained even more than that.
As here comes Oscar Piastri now right in the tracks of Leclerc. Leclerc doesn't really defend too hard into turn 3. Piastri takes the inside and all blocks Leclerc off a bit. Hope there wasn't any contact there, but Leclerc surely has got to let Hamilton go. And he doesn't.
Oh.
But
yeah. I mean, there was contact, that's for sure, between the two.
As all the 2 Ferraris getting very close. But Hamilton surely holds it around the outside and gets it done. Yes, he does. So Hamilton up to 5th. Leclerc absolutely nowhere. And look at Verstappen. He's only 2 seconds behind. They're right in the undercut range now. As talking of pit stops, Leclerc has decided, or Ferrari have decided to bring him in. So Leclerc into the pits. Antonelli now is only 9 seconds off the lead. So Leclerc pits and he will come out in 8th place. Honestly, I think that's probably where he'll end up once everything shakes out by the end of the race. As he comes out of the pit lane. Hamilton, though, now right up behind Oscar Piastri. But they've just come through turn 4 and, yeah, Hamilton not close enough for an overtake. So Hamilton on the soft. Hadjar's dropped off a bit, but he's still out there on the medium. Lando Norris is only a 1.5 seconds behind him. And then you got Leclerc in 8th. Not sure what tyre he's on. As the gap now under 2 seconds out front. It's now 1.8 seconds. So if Verstappen was to pit now, then he would be right behind Russell if Russell pitted a lap later.
I tell you what, and Verstappen cannot take his eyes off Antonelli here. Antonelli gained 6 tenths on Verstappen on that lap as well. He's absolutely flying as well on those fresh and hard tyres.
He is indeed. As Hamilton there had a bit of a look at the back of Piastri as Alex Albon, I think, is pitted. Ocon has made a pit stop that I forgot to mention. So he's now down in 16th.
I also want to say that was completely brain dead by Leclerc not letting Hamilton through.
Yeah, I either not aware, maybe it might not have been made aware by his team, or he is just so frustrated that he just thought, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna do what I want." But I know he had a good qualifying yesterday, but his form at the minute this is the worst form I've seen him in, I think, ever.
Yeah,
he really is. And there, look, that's a replay in the top left of a lockup for Russell, and Russell now only 1.3 ahead of Verstappen.
Jeez, Nostradamus over here calling exactly what mistake Georgia made without being able to see it.
And yeah, if they keep Russell out, which I think at this point they've got to, because I mean, well, they could pit a lap sooner to cover off the undercut, but I mean, Max will probably just get Russell eventually anyway later. So I think they've got to just let Russell battle and try and keep the lead somehow. As yeah, there was slight contact there, but I don't think enough to ruin any races. And here we go, lap 41, the gap, 1.4 seconds. George Russell leading ahead of Max Verstappen. Verstappen catching all the time. Antonelli, 7.5. Just about behind Russell, as Alonso is going to be given a penalty for speeding. He's right behind Lance Stroll, but he'll get ahead of Stroll, probably. He'll probably finish ahead of him, despite the penalty. As Isaac Hadjar is pitted. So he is down to 8th place, but fresher tyres now. Let's see what he can do. As Norris up to 6th on the hard tyre. Piastri now starting to pull away from Hamilton. I think that 3-stop strategy for Ferrari, ambitious, but it's not going to pay off. The delta difference in lap time, the advantage of fresher tyres, it's not like it was in Spain, where it was like 2 seconds a lap or 2.5 a lap. It's just not the same here. As on lap 42, gap was about the same on that lap. Max only gaining about half a tenth. As through turn 3, and it's close. As in that last lap, Antonelli, his progress has been stalled. I don't know if it's because Russell's picked up the pace or...
I think he got caught behind Behrman on that lap.
Right. As I've noticed that Gasly has pitted now as well. So Behrman is up to 13th, Hulkenberg 12th. But, I mean, they're still pounding around out there on track. But, I mean, we've got just under 30 laps to go. I still imagine we've got one more pit stop to go for all of the top 3, and definitely all of the top 4, because Oscar Piastri has been told to box, and now so has Lewis Hamilton. So I think Ferrari pretty much admitting defeat. Just not quick enough today. And in general, not quick enough this weekend. So,
And they've both come in at the same time. They've not boxed opposite.
So Piastri keeps the position. Norris goes up to 4th. Hadjar should be comfortably behind these two. Leclerc does come out ahead, but only by a couple seconds or so. Hadjar only just a second or so behind. So we've got two different races. We've got the top three, and then we've got fourth down to eighth fighting for the rest. As Leclerc actually just did a fastest lap of 1:10.9 on his fresh tyres. But Verstappen,
If I'm Verstappen, I'm pitting this lap.
well, he hasn't, but he is only a second behind Russell now as it begin. Lap 44. Russell, though, did pit. And good pit
I think
stop.
that's a very good decision.
So Russell, will he come out ahead of Lando Norris? Yes, he will. Not by much, but by enough. So Russell down to third. So, well, I mean, with Antonelli, we know we'll go a few laps longer, but what does Max do? Does he respond straight away, or does he go a few laps longer as well to cover Antonelli a bit? And also to give himself fresher tyres to attack Russell at the end. We're about to find out, as this is Hadjar right behind Hamilton. They're in a bit of chaos going on ahead. They're just lapping cars. Lapping the Racing Bulls. Is that the Racing Bulls? No, it's the Haas. It's Behrman, I think.
Verstappen stayed out probably because he can't get to the end just quite on those mediums, perhaps.
Yeah, if he was to pit now, yeah. But also, like I said, if he goes another 3-4 laps, he could then cover off Antonelli having an advantage in tyre life over him.
Yeah, because Antonelli did just gain 7/10 on him on that previous lap.
So all of the top 10 now are on the hard compound tyre. Not everyone is on the same tyre life, but everyone on the hard tyre now in the top 10. And then you got Bortoletto, Hulkenberg, and Gasly, 11th, 12th, 13th, all on the medium. And then Behrman 14th, Colapinto 15th, and then Ocon and Albon as Bortoletto now pits. That's on lap 46. Verstappen still out there, and obviously Antonelli is too. But for George Russell, if he's going to win this race, these next few laps are absolutely crucial. He's got to get or close the gap and build what would be a big enough lead to where Max wouldn't be able to come back at him. As Piastri,
on that lap, he gained 1.5 seconds on Verstappen, did Russell.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much the rate he needs to be quicker than, as Piastri does a fastest lap, 1:10.5. As Bortoletto only dropped down one position to 12th, so Audi look like they're heading for 11th and 12th. Audi just cannot seem to get into the points this season. 11th, they've ended up in so many times. As on lap 47, Antonelli now 3.5 seconds behind Verstappen. At this point, it's hard to say who the favourite is to win this race, as Lance Stroll is told to box to retire the car. As Piastri now, after that fastest lap, is now right back on the gearbox of Leclerc. As Behrman. Is it Behrman who pitted? Yeah. So Colin
Yeah.
Pinto up to 14th. So yeah, Stroll will be out of this race. Lawson just pitted. Lindblad is about to pit. Racing Bulls absolutely dominating again the midfield. They've been able to pit and still come out in the exact same position of 9th and 10th. So brilliant performance by them. Hopefully they can get to the end. As Lando Norris told to box, we'll see what he does at the end. We've seen some last lap heroics from him before at this track.
Oh God! Don't go there.
I thought it's long enough ago you wouldn't remember, but yeah.
It was more because of what Drive to Survive did with it, where it was in freaking Barcelona testing it. It's freaking what even mode was it? God.
Yeah, Norris will come out in 8th as Piastri gets the move done on Leclerc. Can he now keep ahead? Surely he will. Yes, he will. So Piastri heading for 4th place. Hamilton. Since that pit stop, Lewis Hamilton really has not been very quick. And I think Ferrari just not quite managing the tyres that well. I think with McLaren, I think that's why they've been able to get into the fight with Ferrari today, is McLaren have looked after the tyres well enough. So Piastri in 4th, and if he gets that, I mean, that's realistically the best possible result he can get. That's Norris passing the Aston Martin there on the entry to the pit lane. Is that allowed? And then a slight unsafe release there when he came back out.
Well, the Aston was certainly cruising on the way in to retire, so Stroll's at fault anyways, in my books.
Yeah. As Verstappen
I know
says his
that's not how it
tyres...
works.
As Verstappen says his tyres are dead, and he does now come in. Antonelli was right behind him. So Verstappen, now on lap 50, pits. And they're not going to put the extra set of mediums on. They're going to go with the hards. And Verstappen will come out in 3rd. I understand why they've not put the mediums on, but I think it was a risk worth taking. I think in that position I would have put the mediums on. So Antonelli has now been told, okay, Kimi, let's go. Maintain focus. Antonelli is just under 8 seconds clear of Russell. There's no way Antonelli is going. There's no way Antonelli's going to the end. So we'll see when he does pit.
No.
But lower down, Lawson has now got back ahead of Lindblad by undercutting Lindblad, which, to be fair, that's how Lindblad got ahead in the second stint. So played out fairly in the end. But yeah, 9th and 10th for the team. Lap 51. And Russell is now 11 seconds clear of Verstappen.
And Verstappen's already got the purple final sector, so watch out here.
As here is the two Ferraris line astern, and Leclerc surely will get overtaken and really should let him through. As Gasly's up to 12th, Hulkenberg's now pitted. And Leclerc not letting Hamilton through. Not even into turn 4. So. And Antonelli told to box. Well, he's gone a few laps longer than Russell. Not much longer than Verstappen. Only a couple laps. But here we go. He's into the pits. Brilliant pit stops today from Mercedes. And if they win, that's definitely helped. But Verstappen, he's already got the gap down to just over 10 seconds. We have got 20 laps to go. And Verstappen, he needs to catch Russell by about 5 to 6 tenths a lap on average if he's going to win this race. As Hamilton now easily overtakes Leclerc. So Hamilton up to 5th. Leclerc only 3 seconds ahead of Hadjar. Leclerc still, I think, could very well end up 8th. But how much on the last lap was the... How much on the last lap did Max catch Russell?
Yeah, it was only 3 tenths, but he did have quite a lot of traffic in the middle sector, so he still gained by going, I think, half a second faster in the final sector.
Oh, virtual safety car. What's this for?
The timing.
Oh,
I'm trying to see who
a cone
stopped
on the track. It's Alex Albon. He turned in way too early to turn 3, and he's knocked the cone off the inside of the corner.
Oh my god. I have noticed that they have been turning in very aggressively to turn 3.
Yeah, some years, I don't know if you notice this, but some years they like to get the front end in a lot more to that corner, but some years they just like drive around like the outside. I guess with these cars, it's a lot easier to get the front end in.
Yeah.
But Pierre Gasly did pit under that virtual safety car, even though it was brief, and he's now come out in 13th on soft tyres. As the gap out front, it's now 9 seconds between Russell and Verstappen. Antonelli in 3rd is only 4.8 behind. It feels like we're heading for 3 drivers, all heading for the same piece of racetrack at the very end of this race. This is going to get very, very good. Do not go anywhere, guys. As lap 54, gap down to 8.7. And yeah, let me just update quickly that Gasly is now on the soft compound tyre. He should be able to get past Hulkenberg. Not sure he'll catch Bortoletto, though. And then you've got the 2 Haas's, 14th and 15th. As for some reason they're showing the weather radar, apparently there's a very small band of rain in the area, which is incredible given this heat. But there you go. As lap 55 gap is 8.5 seconds. Out front, Antonelli lapping at about the same pace as Verstappen. Well, actually, fastest lap on that particular lap, but not much quicker than Verstappen is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah. 10.5 that time.
As now, the other Red Bull of Hadjar is now only a second behind Leclerc. As further down the order, you've got a battle between Ocon and Colapinto for 15th. But Lando Norris is also catching. So at this rate, I think, yeah, Leclerc is heading potentially for 8th place. And hopefully for Norris's sake, he'll be hoping that Leclerc can hold Hadjar up so he can catch that gap up. As Colapinto, I think he has overtaken Esteban Ocon. But this race, if Max does win it, it is very reminiscent of his second win here at the Red Bull Ring, where he had to hunt down. It was Leclerc who was leading that race in the late stages. He had to hunt him down and win. Obviously, that was a lot tougher to do because he had a horrible first lap and he dropped down to 8th. But Hadjar's sent it up the inside at turn 3. But Leclerc gets a good exit. And will he get back past, or will Hadjar with the fresher tyres go around the outside? No. Hadjar, I think, is going to sail back underneath as Leclerc locks up and goes deep. And yeah, Hadjar gets the position. So Leclerc down to 7th place now. And he'll be wondering in that cockpit, how on earth is he 7th when he started on the front row? As he says, these tyres are shit on the radio. To be fair, I think he probably has been saying that in the cockpit the entire race.
Lee Clark, hooked and stinker.
And now he's got Lando Norris only 2.5 seconds behind him on much fresher tyres. As no further investigation for Norris over that semi-overtake in the pit lane.
Yeah, good.
But let me just update quickly that Colapinto on the medium and Ocon in 16th on the hard. But Max Verstappen is now 7.3 seconds.
Oh, he's gained a lot.
Behind Russell, as that's a replay which is seeing of Russell going off at turn 1, going wide, which would not have helped. But yeah, gap now down to 7 seconds with 14 laps to go. He's gaining, and at this rate, I think he's gaining by just about enough.
1.1 seconds that lap.
That's definitely enough.
But it hadn't been at that much until that lap where he made that mistake, Russell. So, still a long way to play out.
As we're looking at Lando Norris just lapping the Alpine there. And Norris now just 1.3 seconds behind Leclerc. And yeah, Ferrari heading for 5th and 8th, which is incredibly disappointing given they were 2nd and 3rd. I don't think anyone's really expected them to be like fighting for the win, but this has been a very disappointing race.
You would have expected one of them on the podium, and perhaps Hamilton might have been with a better strategy.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, yeah, if you take away the... Yeah, it'd be probably not too far ahead of Antonelli, so it'd be at least close. But, yeah. As Leclerc says, what have we got to stop to lose again? What have we got to lose from stopping again, I think he said. And I don't know what the response was, but he's about to lose.
He said now nothing.
As he's about to lose his hold on 7th place. He's not even going to fight it because he knows there's no point. Lando Norris takes 7th place. Norris, keep an eye on him. He might be able to catch Hadjar, who's only just under 3 seconds ahead. Out front, though, Verstappen only 6 seconds behind.
Oh boy.
And we've got, what, 12 laps or so to go. We're heading for a grandstand finish, as Leclerc is now told to box.
Oh, Antonelli fastest lap with a 10.3 as well.
Yeah, Leclerc does come in for a pit stop. But for Antonelli, only chance he's got, I think, a win in this is if Max and Russell do lose 2 or 3 seconds battling. Or, of course, crash into each other, which is very much possible with these two. But yeah, Antonelli is just under 10 seconds off the lead. He needs a second a lap to gain over Russell to give himself any chance, but it's going to be tough. As Max now 5.6 behind on lap 61. And he is catching at the just about enough of a rate to give himself the chance.
Yeah, it was 4 tenths on that lap, and Antonelli did gain 1 second on Russell on that previous lap, 4 tenths on Verstappen. Sorry, more than 4 tenths on Verstappen.
As Max continuing to gain through this lap. Max, in terms of the lap overall, he's gaining through all parts of the lap. It's not really all coming in, one sector. It's just all of the sectors generally. It's just catching as I think they just lapped the car there. But I don't think he's gained as much on this lap as he would have wanted. No, about 3 tenths. So we've got 10 laps to go. And for Russell, very much he is heading for a showdown with Max Verstappen. But this showdown, not just important for him to win this race, just looking at this race, this is also important for the championship because as it stands, Russell will take 10 points out of Antonelli's lead over him and cut the gap down to 40 points. But of course, if Russell finishes second, it's only a gain of 3. But he might not even gain any points on Antonelli at the rate Antonelli's going as he continues to hunt down his teammate in these final laps. Antonelli only 8.5 seconds behind now. That's a bit further behind. They're just showing Norris and Hadjar. They're about to have a battle. As Norris lapping the Audi. But we don't really want to be looking at this battle. We want to be looking at the battle up front and the timings.
Yeah, Verstappen only gained just under a tenth on that previous lap. Verstappen has had to go through some traffic, but has now passed it all, and there's only clear air between him and Russell.
Yeah, the gap about 5 seconds. Russell at the minute is doing just about enough. But it's still going to be mighty, mighty close. Lap 64, Russell 5.1 seconds clear of Max Verstappen. Antonelli is still 8.5 seconds off the lead. as Norris now just 1.8 seconds behind Isaac Hadjar.
All of a sudden, like someone's clicked their fingers, they're all on very similar lap times at the moment.
Yeah, it feels like they've it almost feels like it's frozen. the gaps for just a lap or so there, but Max has now got it down to 4.8, now 4.7. I do wonder in terms of engine mode, because obviously all these teams are not wanting to use more power if they don't have to. I'm wondering with Mercedes and Red Bull when they will. I mean, obviously they'll be using higher modes at the minute, to either catch or defend. But for Max, he's now 4.6 behind on lap 65.
4/10 that lap.
Is there any...
Same for Antonelli.
As Antonelli now, nothing in between him and Max, but what do you call it? Yeah, I'm just wondering with Red Bull, is there any more engine mode or anything that they have to try and catch? As there's now Williams in between the front two. Max is catching though on this lap. The gap is now down to 4.2, so it feels like Max maybe had a breather lap. Not deliberately, but at least in lap time he had a breather lap, and now he's off back after Russell again. Lap 66, and the gap 4.1 seconds.
George certainly starting to struggle through that middle sector now, on lap time compared to Russell. Compared to Verstappen.
Yeah, and he's got now a Haas of Ocon. Yeah, but I think Ocon's about to get out the way before turn 4. Max has just got past Albon. Antonelli in third, 7 seconds off the lead. So Antonelli's heading for third. The only way he's going to finish higher is if something happens to Russell and Verstappen. He just isn't catching quick enough with the amount of laps we've got remaining. But it is, like you say, it's that middle sector. Gap now 3.7. It's going to be so close. As Norris now within a second of Hadjar. And they begin lap 67. And yeah, gap 3.6 seconds. With 5 full laps to go.
Oh my gosh. Ocon literally just drove off the track onto the grass to let Verstappen through in the final corner.
As Verstappen is just on the straight in between turn 3 and 4. Antonelli only 2.4 behind Verstappen.
Yeah, Antonelli started getting quite a bit on Verstappen on that previous lap. It was 4/10, and Max's front right doesn't look in the best shape.
Yeah, and on this lap, he's not really gained anything on Russell. I think he's only gained about a 10th. So lap 68. Russell leads by 3.5 seconds. Can Russell hang on for what would be a crucial win for his season? But Max Verstappen, who hasn't won a race this season, the longest drought by far he's had in between wins for a long time. But can he somehow still win this race with 3.5 laps to go. I think at this point, I think Russell might have just done enough.
Yeah. I would tend to agree with you there.
I think Max, like you say, I think Max might have just cooked his tyres just a slight bit too much. Antonelli now just under 2 seconds behind Verstappen.
Yeah. And I'm watching the onboards, and they just switched from Antonelli to from Verstappen to Antonelli. And Antonelli just able to turn into the corner and attack the corner a lot more than Verstappen at the moment.
Lap 69. 3 laps to go. The gap down to 3 seconds out front. So Max has got to gain 2.1 seconds in the next lap and 3/4, and that's just not going to happen.
He's going to come under pressure from Antonelli here, no doubt.
And there is an Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso not too far in the distance. And yeah, Antonelli just 1.3 seconds behind. As they come into the corner where Max smashed his car to bits yesterday. Max gaining on this lap on Russell, but not by enough. As they begin the penultimate lap, Russell leads by 2.5 seconds. All 3 cars just then were all on the pit straight in the top 3. It is so close, but can anyone make a move in these final couple laps? And for Antonelli, the championship leader, if he can pass Verstappen before the end, that extra 3 points, you never know, could be the difference at the end of the season, as Russell closing in on Alonso to lap him. And Antonelli has now got the gap to under a second. As they come through the end of the middle sector time beam. And through the final 2 corners. Verstappen has got the gap down to Russell to just 2.2 seconds, but it's not enough. As we begin the final lap, who will finish second? Russell looks like he's done enough, but will it be a Mercedes 1-2? As Antonelli surely will be using full power to try and get close to that Red Bull. As they blast up to turn 3, they pass Alonso. And Antonelli closes in. Does he get good enough exit? He does. It's a good exit, but is it enough to have a look into turn 4? I don't think it is. And no, it's not. And surely Verstappen has done enough to hold on to second place. As all the top 3, so close, coming through the final couple corners. He may have got pole controversially yesterday, but he's done a good enough job today. And George Russell, for the 2nd time, will win the Austrian Grand Prix. Mercedes win in Austria. Max Verstappen 2nd. Kimi Antonelli 3rd. A brilliant race for the top 3. Oscar Piastri will finish in 4th, and then it will be Hamilton 5th, Isaac Hadjar 6th, Lando Norris 7th, Leclerc 8th, Liam Lawson in 9th, Arvid Lindblad 10th, and then Bortoletto 11th, Hulkenberg 12th, Gasly 13th, Behrman 14th, Colapinto 15th, Ocon 16th, Albon 17th, Alonso the last finisher in 18th, and your 4 retirements, Lance Stroll, Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez, and Valtteri Bottas. And there you go. That is your Austrian Grand Prix in the books. And Nib, a word on our race winner. Got pole controversially yesterday, but he just about did enough, didn't he, to hang on today.
He did just enough indeed to hang on to victory. Another 2 laps, and I think he's under trouble. He's in trouble there, but he did just enough to George Russell, and a fantastic drive today to win the Grand Prix.
And without a doubt, maybe not every track just yet, but Red Bull are back in the game because they very well, on a different day, maybe a slightly better start for Verstappen, and he could have won that race. And he will, I think, without doubt, he will win a race this season.
Yeah, I mean, if Red Bull have got that race, got that pace in the race, Max will find a way to win one, no doubt about it. And a phenomenal job as well, considering how much Red Bull had to do overnight to get that car ready to race today.
Absolutely. So congrats to Red Bull. That's their best result of the season, second place. And for me, driver of the day. And I think, would you agree, Max Verstappen today?
Yeah, Verstappen quite clearly and quite comfortably driver of the day today.
And fingers crossed, we'll see him fighting for the win very soon again. I'll be honest, I don't think they'll have as good of a car at Silverstone, but I think, not too far in the future, he is going to win a race this season. No doubt about it. Astro saying Piastri thrashed Norris today. Absolutely, he was comfortably better. And Piastri actually was only about 17 odd seconds off the lead. So, good race from Oscar. And McLaren, I don't think... they were quite gutted after qualifying because they were saying, oh, we're miles off Mercedes and, nowhere near where they want to be. But on pace, they were definitely closer to Mercedes in that race. So, not too bad.
Yeah, end up finishing 21 seconds off the win. And I mean, it was a lot worse a week ago.
Exactly. Looney Classics says, but this race has showed us Kimi is better than Russell in the race. Not just this race, but pretty much all the races so far. Antonelli is quicker than Russell over a race distance. Kimi, what he needs to do is make sure that he is at least alongside Russell on the grid. And then he'll beat him. No doubt about it. If Antonelli was on the front row today, Antonelli would have won that race. 100%.
Yeah.
So that's what he needs to do if he's going to keep Russell at bay, as Russell now is up to second in the championship. And Russell is only 40 points behind as we now head to George Russell's home race at Silverstone. But Antonelli, if he keeps up that pace compared to Russell in over a race distance, I just don't see still how Russell can beat Antonelli, because Antonelli would just have to keep having repeatedly bad qualifying results for Russell to benefit, which is not going to happen. So, Antonelli, still the clear championship favourite. Looney saying George only won because of his fraudulent pole. Yeah, I think you could absolutely say that. I mean, he drove, he did just enough from pole today, but he shouldn't have had pole in the first place. And if he had slowed down like Antonelli did, he would have ended up fourth on the grid behind Antonelli. So, in that alternate scenario, Antonelli probably wins that wins that race comfortably if the grid makeup was like that instead. Rook saying still no P10 for Hulkenberg. And Charles therapist is in money. Charles's therapist is in money again. Yeah, Hulkenberg still without a point, but he's driving well enough. Audi just seemingly cannot get into the top 10, whether it's luck or just not quick enough on certain weekends. But they'll get better, and Hulkenberg will definitely get points on the board at some point. Rook saying Russell's drink system failed during the race. And Rook's also saying earlier, again, robbed of George versus Max back of aggression I've been waiting for since George went mental at Bottas, his first race at Merck. Yeah, it will happen eventually. We will see Verstappen and Russell fighting tooth and nail for a race win very soon. I have no doubt about it. But yeah, today I thought we were going to get it, but Max just didn't have, I think, enough tyre life left to, to have a go. And I think in hindsight, it was the right decision, them going for the hard tyres, because I think Antonelli probably would have had Max at the end if he was on the mediums, because the mediums would have degraded quicker. Looney Classic says Lewis now is clearly faster than Charles in races. Yeah. I mean, quickly before we go, Nib, for Leclerc, what is it, confidence, or like what is going wrong for Leclerc? Because we haven't seen him in this bad a form really ever, have we?
Yeah, I've got to say at the moment, it's probably the worst he's been in F1. But knowing Leclerc, he's going to come out of some random race, finish miraculously on the podium, and then be unbelievable for the rest of the season. Because against a teammate like Sainz, he could get away with it at times. Whereas now Hamilton, who's really found his form again this season, he can't get away with it as much.
Yeah, and well, hopefully we'll get back on it soon. We want Leclerc at his best, obviously. But the next Grand Prix, I think it's guaranteed he will be the second Ferrari driver, because Hamilton will definitely be quicker than him at Silverstone. But I think, even though there's not been a lot of votes, I'll just finish up the poll in the chat. Drive for the day, the Austrian Grand Prix, 44% of vote for Max Verstappen, and then Antonelli, Russell, and Piastri level. Well, Antonelli second, and then Russell and Piastri level on 17%. And yeah, I'm gonna head off because pretty hot now in my room. And the Grand Prix of Austria for 2026 is done with. Nib, thank you for coming on and joining us for today. Didn't quite get the ending we were hoped for, but yeah, hopefully we will get an exciting finish like that soon enough. But thanks for today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on, and pleasure to be on as usual. Unfortunately, I won't be on for the next Grand Prix, as I won't be home. So yeah, I'll be on for the next race after that, whenever we're live, if I'm able to be here. But yeah, thanks everyone for your continued support, and hope you have a merry round of a merry round of 32 week.
Yeah, thanks for that. And yeah, cheers for all of you guys, obviously, tuning in this weekend for this Austrian Grand Prix. Just to let you guys know, there is not a guarantee that I will be doing a race watch along next week because of a couple reasons, which I'll get into if later if I do decide not to do a race watch along. But I will, as usual, on a Thursday, like I do in my posts tab on my homepage on the channel page, I will announce what the schedule is for the that we'll be doing here on the channel for the British Grand Prix. So I'll let you guys know in a few days whether just what the plan is for qualifying of the race and what we're doing here. But thank you guys for coming along for both qualifying and race streams. It's been great to have you. Before you go, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. Make sure to smash a like button before you go. And thanks for all of you and all of your support over this weekend. And hopefully you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And until my podcast tomorrow reviewing the Austrian Grand Prix, and until my qualifying watch-along for the British Grand Prix, which will be live at 1:30 p.m. UK time, of course, on Saturday to cover qualifying and what will be a very hot Silverstone. Until then, guys, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.